There are nights when your entire life shatters in the time it takes to swallow champagne. Tonight, Camilla Vale learned her marriage was a lie. Not through whispered confession, but through cruel laughter echoing across a ballroom filled with Chicago's elite. Her billionaire husband just destroyed her in front of 200 people, and she has nowhere left to run. Except into the rain. Except into the darkness. Except toward a stranger in a jazz cafe who will either save her or damn her completely. If you want to see how far desperation can carry a broken woman, stay until the end. Hit that like button and drop your city in the comments so I can see how far this story travels. Now, let me take you back to where it all began. The champagne glass slipped from Camilla's fingers before she even registered the sound of Grant's voice cutting through the music. Crystal exploded against marble in a burst that nobody noticed because her husband was already talking, already smiling that shark smile he wore when closing deals or ruining lives. "My wife, ladies and gentlemen," Grant Holloway announced into the microphone, his arms stretched wide like a game show host revealing a prize. 8 years of dedicated service. Should we tell them what you were before I found you, darling? The ballroom went silent. 200 faces turned toward her. Diamonds glittered under chandeliers, tuxedos and gowns worth more than most people's cars. The scent of imported roses and expensive cologne. Everything perfect, everything poisoned. Camilla stood frozen near the dessert table in the emerald dress Grant had picked out that morning. The dress that made her look like an accessory. The dress she hated. "A nurse," Grant continued, his voice dripping with theatrical warmth that made her stomach turn. "Working double shifts at County General, scrubs covered in God knows what, living in a studio apartment the size of this coat check." Polite laughter rippled through the crowd. Not cruel yet. Just rich people acknowledging the distance between their world and everyone else's. Grant's eyes found hers across the room, cold, calculating, enjoying this. "I turned her into this." He gestured at her like she was a before and after photo. "Gave her everything. This dress, these jewels, this life. And you know what's funny?" He paused for effect. The room leaned in. "She still can't figure out which fork to use." The laughter changed. Sharper now. Crueler. People turning to their neighbors to share the joke. Camilla felt her face burning, felt the emerald dress shrinking around her ribs, felt 8 years of swallowed humiliation rising in her throat like bile. She should have said something, should have walked out, should have thrown the goddamn champagne in his face. Instead, she smiled. That same smile she'd perfected over 8 years of charity dinners and business galas and private moments when Grant reminded her exactly how worthless she'd be without him. The smile that said everything was fine. The smile that kept her safe. Grant winked at her and turned back to his guests, already moving on to the next joke, the next deal, the next moment where he proved he owned every room he entered. Camilla's hands shook. She pressed them against her stomach, feeling the corseted dress dig into her ribs, feeling her pulse hammering against her wrists. Nobody looked at her anymore. The moment had passed. Entertainment delivered. Story told. She backed toward the service hallway, her heels clicking against marble until she hit carpet, until the noise of the party faded into a dull roar behind heavy doors. The hallway smelled like lemon polish and fresh flowers. Neutral territory. Staff only. Her phone buzzed in the tiny purse dangling from her wrist. "Grant, don't embarrass me by leaving early. Smile. Stay until midnight. We'll discuss your behavior at home." Her behavior. Camilla stared at the message until the words blurred. 8 years. 8 years of this. Of being remade. Of being owned. Of being the punchline to jokes she didn't understand until the laughter started. She kept walking. Past the catering staff, past the security checkpoint, past the coat check where a young woman with kind eyes asked if she needed help finding something. "No," Camilla heard herself say. "I'm leaving." "Ma'am, it's pouring outside. Should I call your car?" "No." She pushed through the doors into the night. Rain hit her like a fist. Cold. Violent. Chicago in October didn't mess around. Within seconds, the emerald dress was plastered against her skin. The carefully styled hair collapsing around her face. Mascara running in black rivers down her cheeks. Camilla walked anyway. Down Michigan Avenue. Past designer storefronts reflecting her ruined reflection. Past couples huddled under umbrellas. Past a homeless man who looked at her dress and jewelry and asked if she was okay. She couldn't answer him. Her phone kept buzzing. Grant. then his assistant, then numbers she didn't recognize. People from the party, probably. People wondering where the wife went. People who'd laughed at the fork joke. She turned it off. The rain soaked through to her bones. Her heels filled with water. Somewhere around Randolph Street, she lost one of Grant's diamond earrings and didn't bother looking for it. The city blurred around her. Headlights, neon signs, steam rising from grates. Everything looked like a dream drowning. She had no plan, no destination, just the animal need to keep moving because stopping meant thinking and thinking meant breaking completely. That's when she heard the music, jazz, drifting up from a basement entrance she'd walked past 1,000 times without noticing. A small sign barely visible through the rain, Velvet Hour. Camilla stopped. Water ran into her eyes. Her whole body shook from cold and shock and something deeper than both. The music called anyway. She descended the stairs, leaving puddles on each step. The door was heavy, old wood, no bouncer, no velvet rope, just a brass handle that turned smooth under her frozen fingers. Inside, the world changed. Amber lights. Low ceiling. Maybe 30 people scattered across tables and bar stools. A three-piece band in the corner, saxophone, bass, piano, playing something slow and sad and perfect. The air smelled like bourbon and cigarette smoke that technically wasn't allowed, but nobody seemed to care. Every face turned toward her. The drowned woman in the designer dress. The ghost who'd wandered in from the storm. Camilla stood dripping on the entrance mat, suddenly aware of how insane she must look. Mascara streaked, shoeless on one foot, shaking so hard her teeth chattered. Jesus Christ. The bartender, a woman with silver hair and sleeve tattoos, grabbed a stack of bar towels. Honey, what happened? Camilla's voice came out broken. I don't know. Come here, sit. Strong hands guided her to a stool at the end of the bar. The towels appeared, rough cotton absorbing water from her hair, her shoulders, her arms. Someone draped a jacket around her. Someone else slid a glass of something amber toward her fingers. Drink, the bartender ordered. You're hypothermic. Camilla drank. Whiskey burned down her throat, spreading heat that felt almost violent after the cold. She coughed, eyes watering. Again, the bartender said. She drank again. The shaking began to slow. Feeling crept back into her fingers. The music wrapped around her like a blanket, saxophone notes bending through the smoke-thick air. Better? The bartender asked. Camilla nodded, not trusting her voice yet. You want me to call someone? No. You sure? Because you look like... Please don't. The bartender studied her for a long moment, then nodded. Okay, you need anything else? You tell me. Name's Diane. Thank you. Diane moved down the bar to help other customers, leaving Camilla alone with her whiskey and the weight of what she'd just done. Left Grant's party. Left without permission. Left her phone off while he was certainly losing his mind trying to track her down. The fear should have hit by now. The panic. The desperate need to fix this before it got worse. Instead, she felt nothing. Just emptiness where the fear used to live. You're bleeding. The voice came from her left. Male. Quiet. The kind of voice that didn't need to be loud to make you listen. Camilla turned. The man sat 2 stools away, angled slightly toward her but not invading her space. Maybe 40. Dark hair touched with gray at the temples. Expensive suit that somehow looked lived in rather than costume-like. Eyes the color of smoke. Your foot, he said, nodding downward. She looked. Blood mixed with water on the floor beneath her bare foot. She must have cut it on something during the walk. Hadn't even noticed. Oh. He signaled to Diane, who appeared with a first aid kit like she'd been expecting this. The man took it without asking, kneeling beside Camilla's stool with the ease of someone comfortable in his own body. May I? Camilla nodded, too tired to argue. He lifted her foot gently, examining the cut. His hands were warm, steady. No wedding ring, small scar across the knuckles of his right hand. Glass, he said. Not deep. You'll survive. He cleaned the wound with alcohol that stung enough to make her gasp. His eyes flicked up to hers, checking, then returned to his work. Gauze, tape, efficient movements. You do this often? Camilla asked. Fix wounded strangers in jazz clubs? The corner of his mouth lifted slightly. Only on Thursdays. It's Friday. Then you're lucky. He finished wrapping her foot and stood, returning to his stool but not his drink. Just watching her with those smoke-colored eyes that seemed to see things she hadn't meant to show. Thank you, Camilla said. You're welcome. Silence stretched between them, filled by saxophone and the murmur of conversation from other tables. Not uncomfortable, just present. I'm Camilla. Lucienne. He didn't offer a last name. Didn't ask for hers. Didn't ask why she'd stumbled in looking like she'd barely escaped something. Just sat there existing beside her without demanding anything. It was the kindest thing anyone had done for her in years. Bad night? He asked eventually. Camilla laughed, a sound too sharp to be humor. You could say that. Want to talk about it? No? Good. Talking's overrated. He signaled to Diane, who brought 2 more whiskeys. Lucien slid one toward Camilla without looking at her. His attention focused on the band now launching into something darker, something that felt like 3 a.m. and bad decisions. They sat in silence for 3 songs. Camilla felt her breathing slow, felt the whiskey settling warm in her chest, felt the bizarre safety of sitting next to a stranger who asked for nothing and offered exactly what she needed, space to exist without performing. I should go, she said finally, though she had no idea where. Where? I don't know. Then stay. It wasn't a command, just a suggestion. A door left open. Camilla looked at him, really looked. The expensive suit, the scar on his hand, the way Diane had brought him whiskey without asking what he wanted, the way the other patrons gave his section of the bar a respectful distance. This was a man people noticed, a man who carried weight. Who are you? She asked. Lucien smiled, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. Someone who knows what it looks like when a person's running from something worse than rain. The truth hit like a slap. He saw her. Not the dress. Not the jewelry that probably cost more than most people made in a year. Not the carefully constructed shell Grant had built around her. He saw the fractures underneath. I'm nobody, Camilla said quietly. Just someone who made very bad choices for a very long time. Then you'll fit right in here? Lucien raised his glass slightly. To bad choices and second chances. Camilla lifted hers. The crystal clinked soft in the dim light. They drank. The band shifted into something slower. People began drifting toward a small, clear space near the piano, swaying together in the low light. Couples mostly. A few solo dancers just feeling the music. You dance? Lucien asked. Not in a long time. Shame. He stood, offering his hand. Not demanding, just offering. Camilla stared at that hand, scarred, steady, attached to a stranger she'd met 20 minutes ago, a stranger who'd bandaged her foot and bought her whiskey and asked for absolutely nothing in return. Grant's voice echoed in her memory. We'll discuss your behavior at home. Her behavior, her choices, her life that wasn't really hers at all. Camilla took Lucien's hand. He led her to the small, cleared space and pulled her close. Not too close. Just enough. His hand settled warm against her lower back. Her palm pressed against his shoulder, feeling solid muscle beneath expensive fabric. They moved to the music. No fancy steps, no performance. Just 2 people swaying in the amber dark while saxophone notes bent around them like smoke. You're shaking again, Lucien said quietly near her ear. I know. Still cold? No. He didn't ask what then. Just held her a little tighter, letting her body remember what it felt like to be touched without possession, to be held without ownership. Camilla closed her eyes. Let the music carry her. Let this strange man's steadiness anchor her. Let herself exist in this moment without thinking about the next one, the next consequence, the next price she'd have to pay. Thank you, she whispered. For what? Not asking questions. Lucien's hand moved slightly against her back. Sometimes surviving one bad night depends on a single person deciding you matter. The words cracked something in her chest. Camilla pressed her face against his shoulder, hiding sudden tears in expensive fabric that smelled like cedar and rain. He didn't pull away. Didn't make her look at him, just kept moving slowly to the music while she fell apart as quietly as possible. The song ended. Another began. They kept dancing. Somewhere during the 3rd song, Camilla's phone vibrated in her soaked purse. Once, twice, 15 times in rapid succession. Grant losing his mind, Grant mobilizing resources, Grant doing what Grant did best, taking control. Lucian felt her tense. You need to go? I don't know. That's not a no. Camilla pulled back enough to look at him. His face was calm, patient, no judgment in those smoke-colored eyes. I left my husband tonight, she heard herself say, in front of 200 people at his birthday party. He's probably looking for me right now. Is that a problem? He's very powerful. So am I. It wasn't a boast, just a fact delivered in that same quiet voice. Camilla studied him. The expensive suit, the scar. The way everyone in this place treated him with careful respect. The ease with which he'd helped her without hesitation. What do you do? She asked. Lucian smiled slightly. I solve problems. What kind of problems? The kind your husband probably has right now. The words should have scared her, should have sent her running. Instead, they settled into her chest like an answer to a question she hadn't known how to ask. I can't go back there, Camilla said. To the penthouse, to him. I can't do it anymore. Then don't. It's not that simple. It is exactly that simple. Lucian's hand tightened slightly on her waist. You decide you're done. You walk away. Everything else is just details. He'll come after me. Let him. The confidence in those two words made her dizzy. Or maybe that was the whiskey, or the shock catching up, or the sheer insanity of standing in a stranger's arms talking about burning her entire life down. I don't even know you, Camilla said. No. But you trusted me enough to let me touch your blood, to dance with me, to tell me the truth. Lucian's eyes held hers. That's more than most people manage in a lifetime. Her phone buzzed again. Longer this time. A call. Grant. Camilla felt ice spreading through her veins. Familiar fear, familiar obedience. The trained response of 8 years spent learning exactly what happened when she disobeyed. Lucien's thumb moved against her back. Just once. A reminder that she wasn't alone in this moment. You don't have to answer, he said quietly. He'll send people to find me. Let him try. The phone stopped buzzing. Silence rushed back in, filled by jazz and breathing and the pounding of Camilla's heart. She made a choice. Camilla pulled her phone from the soaked purse, Grant's name still glowing on the screen with 7 missed calls. 8, 9. She turned it completely off. Not silent. Off. The screen went dark. Okay, she whispered. Okay. Lucian nodded once, then released her. Come with me. He led her past the bar, past Diane, who nodded knowingly, through a door marked private that opened into a narrow hallway. Old brick walls. Vintage photographs of jazz legends. A staircase leading up. Where are we going? Camilla asked. Somewhere safe. Somewhere he can't find you tonight. Lucian paused, turning to face her. Unless you'd rather I call you a cab to anywhere else. I have nowhere else. Then you stay with me until you do. It was insane. Following a stranger. A man she'd met an hour ago. A man who just casually suggested he could protect her from Grant Holloway's considerable reach. But standing in that hallway, wearing a ruined dress and one bandaged foot, having just turned off her phone for the first time in 8 years, insanity felt like the sanest option she had left. Okay, Camilla said. Lucien smiled, a real one this time, reaching his eyes. Good, let's go. They climbed the stairs into another world. The room above Velvet Hour was nothing like the jazz club below. Modern, minimalist, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the rain-soaked city, leather furniture, a kitchen that looked barely used, everything expensive but understated. You live here? Camilla asked. Sometimes. Lucien moved to a closet, pulling out clothes. Showers through there. These will be too big, but they're clean and dry. He handed her sweatpants and a t-shirt that probably cost more than her ruined dress. Camilla took them, her fingers brushing his. Why are you helping me? Lucien met her eyes. Because tonight, you needed someone too. Tomorrow, we'll figure out the rest. He turned away, giving her privacy to process, to breathe, to exist without scrutiny. Camilla walked to the bathroom on shaking legs, closed the door, stared at herself in the mirror. The woman looking back was unrecognizable. Mascara streaked, hair plastered, dress clinging, diamond necklace worth $50,000 sitting against skin marked by Grant's casual cruelty. She stripped it all off. The dress, the jewelry, the last 8 years. The shower ran hot enough to hurt. Camilla stood under the spray until she couldn't tell tears from water, until her skin turned pink, until she felt almost human again. When she emerged wrapped in a towel, she found the clothes Lucian had given her folded on the counter. And next to them, a small first aid kit and a handwritten note. Take your time. I'll be outside when you're ready. You're safe here. Camilla, dressed in his clothes that smelled like cedar and safety, wrapped the towel around her wet hair, walked back out into the living room. Lucien stood by the windows, silhouetted against the city lights, phone pressed to his ear. I don't care what it costs, he said quietly. Find out everything about Grant Holloway, property, accounts, business dealings, legal vulnerabilities, everything. By morning. He ended the call and turned, seeing her watching. Making arrangements, he said simply. For what? For making sure you stay disappeared as long as you need to. Camilla's throat tightened. You don't have to do this. I know. Then why? Lucien crossed the room slowly, stopping just close enough. Because I've spent my entire life watching powerful men destroy people who couldn't fight back. And tonight, I'm choosing not to watch anymore. The weight of those words settled between them. Who are you really? Camilla asked again. Someone who can help, if you'll let me. Outside, the city glittered through rain. Somewhere out there, Grant was mobilizing his empire, calling lawyers, calling police, calling everyone who owed him favors. But here, in this room above a hidden jazz club, Camilla felt something she hadn't felt in 8 years. Hope. And it terrified her more than anything Grant had ever done. I should warn you, she said quietly. He's not going to stop looking for me. Lucian's eyes held hers, smoke and steel and absolute certainty. Good, he said. I'm counting on it. Camilla woke to unfamiliar silence. No traffic noise. No city hum bleeding through triple-paned penthouse windows. Just quiet so complete it pressed against her eardrums like water. She opened her eyes to dawn light filtering through floor-to-ceiling glass, illuminating a room she didn't recognize. Gray walls. Minimalist furniture. A door cracked open showing marble tile. Then it all came back. The party. The rain. Lucien. She sat up fast, heart hammering, the borrowed t-shirt twisted around her ribs. Her mouth tasted like whiskey and bad decisions. The bedroom door stood open. Beyond it, she heard nothing, no movement, no breathing, just that terrible quiet. Camilla swung her legs over the side of the bed, feeling carpet soft beneath her bandaged foot. The gauze Lucien had wrapped last night was still clean, still tight. Professional work. She found him in the kitchen, standing at the counter with his back to her, wearing different clothes now, dark jeans, black sweater, a phone pressed to his ear. Speaking in Italian, low and rapid, the words flowing like water over stone. He turned as she approached, eyes finding hers. Held up one finger. Wait. Sì. Capisco. No, voglio tutto entro mezzogiorno. Yes, I understand. No, I want everything by noon. He ended the call, setting the phone down with deliberate care. Coffee? Please. He poured from a French press into a mug that probably cost more than her first car. Handed it to her black. Somehow knew she didn't take cream or sugar. Camilla wrapped both hands around the warmth, needing something to hold on to. What time is it? 6:30? You've been awake long? I don't sleep much. Lucien leaned against the counter, studying her, not leering, just observing. How's the foot? Fine. Better. She sipped coffee that tasted like it cost exactly as much as the mug. Thank you for last night, for all of it. You already thanked me. I know. I'm saying it again. Silence stretched between them, not comfortable anymore. Morning light made everything sharper, more real. Last night had been rain and whiskey and desperation. This was daylight and consequences, and the slow realization that she'd spent the night in a stranger's apartment. A stranger who was currently making calls in Italian about her husband. What were you talking about? Camilla asked. On the phone. Research. On Grant. Yes. And? Lucien's expression didn't change. He filed a missing persons report at 4 this morning. Claims you're mentally unstable, potentially suicidal. Every hospital and police station in Chicago has your photo. The coffee turned to acid in her stomach. That fast. He's efficient, I'll give him that. What else? He's got people checking hotels, traffic cameras. Your credit cards are being monitored. Your friends are being called. Lucien paused. He's very concerned about your well-being. The way he said it, flat, almost amused, made something twist in Camilla's chest. You think this is funny? No, I think it's predictable. Lucien set his own mug down. Powerful men don't lose things gracefully, especially things they've spent years convincing themselves they own. I'm not a thing. I know. He doesn't. The truth of it hit like a fist. 8 years of being cataloged alongside the penthouse and the cars and the art collection, Grant's wife, Grant's project, Grant's possession that had just walked away. I need to leave, Camilla said suddenly. I'm putting you in danger just being here. You're not going anywhere. You don't understand what he's capable of. Neither do you. Lucien's voice stayed calm, but something shifted in his eyes. Something cold. Sit down, Camilla. It wasn't a request. She sat at the kitchen island, coffee sloshing slightly. Her hands shook. Lucien moved to the windows, looking out at the city waking up below. Grant Holloway owns 3 real estate development companies, sits on 4 corporate boards, has connections to half the aldermen in Chicago and at least 2 judges. He turned. Am I missing anything? How do you... I told you, I solve problems. Can't solve them without understanding them first. He crossed back to her, leaning against the counter close enough that she could smell cedar. Your husband is powerful, connected, used to getting his way, but he's not invincible. You don't know him. I know men like him. I've buried men like him. Lucien's voice dropped. The question isn't whether Grant can hurt you. He can. The question is whether you're going to let him. Camilla stared at him. At this man who'd appeared out of nowhere 12 hours ago and was now calmly discussing burying people. The words should have terrified her, should have sent her running. Instead, they settled into her bones like an answer she'd been waiting for. Who are you really? She asked for the 3rd time. Lucien smiled slightly. You keep asking that. You keep not answering. Fair. He studied her for a long moment. I'm someone who built an empire in places polite society pretends don't exist. I solve problems that lawyers can't touch and police won't acknowledge. People come to me when they've exhausted every legal option and still need help. You're a criminal, by some definitions, by legal definitions. Those too. No shame in his voice, just fact. Does that scare you? It should have. God, it should have. No, Camilla heard herself say. That scares me less than going back to Grant. Something flickered across Lucien's face. Approval, maybe, or recognition. Good, he said, because going back isn't an option anymore. What do you mean? I mean, your husband declared war the moment he filed that police report. Painting you as unstable, potentially dangerous to yourself, that's not concern. That's strategy. He's building a legal framework to have you committed if you surface. The room tilted. Camilla gripped the counter edge. He can't do that. He can if he has the right doctors, the right paperwork, the right judge signing off. Lucien's voice stayed steady. Involuntary psychiatric hold. 72 hours to start. Long enough to get you somewhere he controls, somewhere you disappear. You're lying. I'm not, and you know it. She did. Deep down, she'd always known Grant was capable of this. The control freak who counted her calories, who chose her clothes, who monitored her phone calls and tracked her location and made sure she understood exactly how much she owed him. Of course, he'd have contingencies for her if she ever tried to leave. I can't fight him, Camilla whispered. I have nothing. No money. No lawyers. No... You have me. The words hung in the air between them. Why? Camilla looked up at him. Why would you do this? You don't know me. I'm nobody. I'm just... You're someone who walked into the rain rather than swallow one more piece of humiliation. Lucien's eyes held hers. That's not nobody. That's someone worth fighting for. Her throat closed. Tears burned behind her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. "What do you want from me?" she asked. "There's always a price. Always something. Right now, I want you to eat breakfast, take a shower. Let me handle the immediate crisis." He pushed away from the counter. "Later, we'll discuss what comes next." That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting today. Lucian moved past her toward the hallway, then stopped. "One more thing. You can't contact anyone from your old life, not friends, not family, not work. Anyone you reach out to, Grant will use to find you, understood?" Camilla nodded numbly. "Good. There's clothes in the closet that should fit. Help yourself." He started walking again. "Lucien," he turned. "What are you going to do?" His smile was cold enough to frost glass. "I'm going to remind your husband that Chicago has more than one king." Then he was gone, leaving Camilla alone with her coffee and the slow realization that she'd just traded one dangerous man for another. The difference was, this one seemed to be on her side. Maybe. The clothes in the closet fit too well to be coincidence. Jeans in her exact size. Sweaters that didn't swallow her. Even underwear and bras still in packages. The right cup size sitting on the shelf like they'd been waiting. Camilla stood in the walk-in closet, holding a cashmere sweater, her skin crawling. How long had Lucien been planning this? Had last night been chance or calculation? A stranger helping a woman in need or something else entirely? She dropped the sweater like it burned. The bathroom beckoned, marble and chrome and a shower with 6 heads that probably cost more than her nursing school tuition. Camilla locked the door even though she was alone, even though Lucien had left an hour ago. Underwater hot enough to hurt, she tried to think. Grant would be mobilizing everything, his lawyers, his connections, his money. He'd paint her as crazy, unfit, dangerous. He'd use every tool in his arsenal to bring her back under control. And she had nothing except a gangster's protection and clothes that fit too perfectly. The spiral pulled her down. What had she done? Running into the night was one thing. Staying hidden with a man who casually discussed burying people was something else entirely. Camilla pressed her forehead against tile, breathing steam. She'd made her choice last night when she turned off her phone, when she followed Lucien upstairs, when she decided that anything was better than going back. Now she had to live with it. Lucien returned at noon carrying bags from a restaurant Camilla didn't recognize. "Lunch," he said, setting containers on the counter. "You need to eat." "I'm not hungry." "Eat anyway." He unpacked pasta that smelled like garlic and butter and expensive ingredients, set out plates, forks, napkins, efficient movements that suggested he'd done this before. Camilla sat at the island, watching him. "The clothes in the closet. What about them?" "They fit me perfectly. That's generally the goal with clothing." "How did you know my size?" Lucien looked up from dividing pasta. "I'm observant." "Bullshit." His eyebrow raised slightly. "Excuse me?" "Those aren't guesses. Those are exact measurements." Camilla's voice hardened. "How long have you been watching me?" For the first time since she'd met him, Lucien hesitated. "Answer me," she demanded. He set down the serving spoon, wiped his hands on a dish towel, turned to face her fully. 3 months, he said. The room spun. "What?" "Grant came to my attention 3 months ago through a business associate. I started looking into his operations, his vulnerabilities." Lucien's expression stayed neutral. "You were part of that research." "Research." The word tasted like poison. "You researched me." "I researched everyone connected to him?" "And decided to what? Stock a closet just in case his wife randomly showed up needing help?" "Yes." The simplicity of it made her dizzy. "You're insane," Camilla said. "Probably." "I need to leave." She stood chair scraping against hardwood, made it 3 steps before Lucien caught her wrist. Not hard, just firm enough to stop her. "Where are you going to go?" he asked quietly. "Anywhere but here." "Back to Grant?" "No." "Then where? You have no money, no safe place. Every hotel clerk in Chicago has your photo. Every cop is looking for you." His grip loosened but didn't release. "You walk out that door, you last maybe 4 hours before someone recognizes you and makes a call." "Let go of me." Camilla Seki. "Let." Go. He released her immediately, stepping back with hands raised. Camilla stood there shaking, fury and fear warring in her chest. You've been watching me for 3 months, planning this. Waiting for what? For me to break down so you could swoop in and play hero? No. Then what? I was gathering information on Grant. You were part of that picture. When I saw what he was doing to you, the control, the isolation, the systematic destruction of who you used to be, I made contingency plans. For me. Yes. Why? Lucien was quiet for a long moment. Because my wife died 3 years ago. Cancer. I watched it eat her alive over 18 months, while the best doctors in the world told me there was nothing they could do. His voice stayed level, but something dark moved behind his eyes. I couldn't save her. I can save you. The words hit like a slap. I'm not your wife, Camilla said. I know. I'm not your redemption project. I know that too. Then what am I? Someone who deserves the chance to decide who she wants to be without Grant Holloway's hands around her throat. Lucien met her eyes. That's it. That's all this is. Camilla wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that this was altruism wrapped in expensive suits and Italian phone calls. But she'd learned the hard way that men always wanted something. What do you get out of this? She asked. The satisfaction of watching Grant lose something that matters to him. That's it? Revenge by proxy? Is that not enough? She studied him, the scar on his knuckles, the way he stood perfectly still, giving her space to process. The expensive kitchen in the apartment above a jazz club, the closet full of clothes in her size, the casual mention of a dead wife. None of it added up to safety. All of it pointed to danger just as sharp as Grant's, differently shaped. I don't trust you, Camilla said. Smart. But I can't go back to him. No. So I'm trapped either way. Lucien shook his head. You're choosing the option that doesn't end with you committed to a psychiatric facility under Grant's control. That's not trapped. That's strategic survival. The brutal honesty of it cut through her spiral. He was right. She hated that he was right, but denying it wouldn't change reality. Okay, Camilla said finally. I'll stay, for now, until I figure out something else. Fair enough. But I want answers, real ones, about who you are, what you do, why Grant came to your attention. She crossed her arms. No more vague bullshit about solving problems. Lucien considered this, then nodded. After lunch, we eat first. Why? Because you haven't had a real meal in 24 hours and you're running on adrenaline. I need you sharp for this conversation, not shaky. Despite everything, Camilla's stomach growled. Betrayed by her own body, Lucien's mouth twitched. Not quite a smile. Fine, she muttered, returning to her seat. But you're telling me everything. Everything relevant. Everything. He served pasta onto both plates, slid one toward her with a fork. They ate in silence. The food was obscenely good. Fresh pasta, butter sauce with herbs she couldn't identify, vegetables that actually tasted like something. Restaurant quality. Maybe better. Camilla ate mechanically, refueling while her mind raced through possibilities. Lucien watching her for months, preparing for this. Knowing about Grant's business, his connections, his vulnerabilities. This wasn't random kindness. This was a chess move she didn't understand yet. When both plates were empty, Lucien cleared them away. Poured water for both of them. Returned to his seat across the island. Okay, he said. What do you want to know? Everything. Start with why Grant matters to you. Lucien leaned back, fingers steepled. Grant's development company has been buying properties in the South Loop, residential buildings mostly, older structures with rent-controlled tenants. So he's displacing families, using legal loopholes to evict people who've lived there for decades, tearing down affordable housing to build luxury condos. Lucien's voice stayed level. One of those buildings housed a community center I fund, after-school programs, food bank, medical clinic for people without insurance. He shut it down. He tried. I stopped him. How? I bought the building before his deal could close, made sure the tenant stayed, expanded the community center. Camilla processed this. He came after you. He tried, brought lawyers, inspectors, City officials he owned, tried to find violations, code issues, anything to force me out. And? Lucien's smile was cold. I have better lawyers, and the officials he owned weren't the only ones in Chicago. So this is a turf war. This is me protecting people Grant sees as obstacles to profit. Lucien's eyes hardened. When I started looking into his operation, I found a pattern. Buy cheap, displace poor, build expensive, repeat, always legal, always brutal. And you found me in that research. I found you at his side during property tours, photographed at galas, quoted in society pages about charity work. He paused. Then I looked closer, noticed how you never smiled in candid shots, how you stood just slightly behind him in every photo, how your public appearances decreased over time until you barely existed outside the penthouse. Camilla's throat tightened. You saw all that. I see patterns. It's what I do. So you what? Decided to save me? Just in case? I decided that if Grant's wife ever ran, she'd need help he couldn't reach. So I prepared. Lucien shrugged. Last night you ran. Here we are. It made terrible sense. Clinical, strategic. Nothing to do with kindness and everything to do with finding Grant's weakness and exploiting it. She was the weakness. I'm leverage, Camilla said. You're a person. A person you're using against my husband. Ex-husband, Lucien corrected. And yes, if that bothers you, the door's unlocked. His bluntness was almost refreshing after 8 years of Grant's manipulative doublespeak. What happens now? Camilla asked. Now I keep you hidden while my people gather evidence on Grant's operation, financial crimes, bribery, fraud, everything that'll stick in federal court. How long? Weeks, maybe months. And I just hide here? In this apartment? No, too exposed, too predictable. Lucien stood. I have somewhere else. Somewhere Grant will never think to look. Where? Somewhere I actually live. They left at dusk. Lucien drove a black SUV with windows tinted dark enough to be illegal. Camilla sat in the passenger seat wearing a baseball cap and sunglasses, feeling ridiculous and terrified in equal measure. The city blurred past. Downtown giving way to industrial zones, then suburbs, then something that looked almost rural. Trees thickened. Houses spread further apart. Where are we going? Camilla asked. Lake Michigan, North Shore. That's an hour away. 90 minutes. Good for keeping distance. They drove in silence, Lucien's hand steady on the wheel, his attention split between the road and his mirrors. Checking for tails. Always watching. Full dark had fallen by the time they turned onto a private road barely visible from the highway. Trees pressed close on both sides. No streetlights, no other houses. Then the road opened up. The estate rose against the night sky like something from a different world. Glass and steel and stone. 3 stories of modern architecture perched on a cliff overlooking black water. Security lights illuminated the grounds. Cameras tracked their approach. Lucien pulled into a garage large enough to house 6 cars. Only 3 occupied the spaces. Another SUV, a sedan, and a sports car that probably cost more than Camilla had earned in her entire nursing career. Home, he said simply. They entered through a side door into a mudroom that opened into a kitchen bigger than Camilla's old apartment. Industrial appliances, marble counters, windows overlooking darkness and water. A woman stood at the sink washing dishes. 50-something. Gray hair pulled back. Sharp eyes that assessed Camilla in 2 seconds flat. Maria, Lucien said. This is Camilla. She'll be staying with us. Maria dried her hands on a towel, expression neutral. The guest suite? East wing, 3rd floor. I'll prepare it. She left without another word, footsteps fading down a hallway. Housekeeper, Camilla asked. Among other things, she's been with me 15 years, completely loyal. Everyone seems loyal to you. I pay well, and I don't betray people who work for me. Lucien moved toward another hallway. Come on, I'll show you the rest. The house was massive. Rooms flowed into rooms, each decorated with the same minimalist precision as the apartment. Art on the walls, real art, pieces Camilla recognized from museums, libraries, sitting rooms, a home gym, A media room with a screen the size of a small movie theater. Everything screamed wealth and power and isolation. How many people live here? Camilla asked. Me? Maria? Security staff in the guest house. Lucien paused at a staircase. And as of an hour ago, my daughter. Camilla stopped. What? Arya. She's 8, lives with me part-time, just arrived from her grandmother's. You have a daughter. I mentioned my wife died. She left behind a child. You didn't mention the child was here. Does it matter? Yes! Camilla's voice rose. You can't just, there's a child in this house, and you're hiding me from the police. Arya knows nothing about your situation. As far as she's concerned, you're a friend staying with us for a while. Lucien's voice stayed calm. My daughter is safe. You're safe. These facts aren't in conflict. Everything about this is insane. Yes. And yet here you are. He had a point. Camilla followed him up the stairs, her mind reeling. A daughter. An 8-year-old girl living in the house of a man who casually discussed burying people. What kind of life was that? What kind of life was this becoming? They reached the 3rd floor. Lucien opened a door into a suite that made the downtown apartment look modest. Bedroom with a king bed. Sitting area. Bathroom with a soaking tub. Windows overlooking the lake. You'll be comfortable here, Lucien said. Maria's bringing up your things from the car. I don't have things. I have one change of clothes. I had a few items purchased. They'll be here shortly. More clothes that would fit perfectly. More preparation. More evidence that this had been planned down to the smallest detail. I can't do this, Camilla said quietly. Can't do what? Any of it. Hide here. Let you fight my battles. Pretend this is normal. Lucien studied her. What's the alternative? I don't know. Then you do this. One day at a time. One decision at a time. He moved toward the door. Dinner's at 7. Arya will want to meet you. Lucien. He turned. What if Grant finds me here? He won't. But if he does? Something cold and final settled into Lucien's expression. Then he'll learn what happens when he comes to my home uninvited. The door closed behind him, leaving Camilla alone in luxury that felt like a beautiful cage. She walked to the windows, looking out at black water reflecting security lights. Somewhere out there, Chicago glittered. Grant mobilizing his empire, police searching, the world moving forward while she hid in a gangster's fortress. This was survival. This was strategy. This was also the beginning of something that terrified her more than Grant ever had. Because, at least with Grant, she'd understood the danger. With Lucien, she had no idea what she'd really agreed to. Dinner was surreal. Camilla descended at 7 to find a dining room table set for 3, Lucien at one end, an empty chair across from him, and a small girl with dark hair and huge brown eyes watching from the doorway. You must be Arya, Camilla said, trying for warmth despite her nerves. The girl nodded shyly. I'm Camilla. Your dad said I could stay here for a little while. Why? Direct, no filter, 8-year-old honesty. I needed somewhere quiet to think, Camilla said carefully. Are you sad? The question hit harder than expected. Sometimes, yeah. Me too. Arya moved to her seat. My mom died. That's why I'm sad. Camilla's chest tightened. She looked at Lucien, who watched them both with an expression she couldn't read. I'm sorry, Camilla said to Arya. That must be really hard. It is. But Papa says she's watching over me. The girl picked up her fork. Do you believe in that stuff? I don't know. Maybe. Papa doesn't. But he says it anyway to make me feel better. Lucien's jaw tightened slightly. Arya. What? You do. The girl looked at Camilla. He's not good at lying. His face does this thing. Despite everything, Camilla almost smiled. What thing? His eyebrow twitches, see? Arya pointed. Lucien's eyebrow did not twitch, but his mouth curved slightly. Eat your dinner. Maria served pasta again, apparently Lucien's signature meal. They ate while Arya chattered about school, about friends, about a project on the solar system she was building with popsicle sticks and paint. Normal, painfully normal. A little girl and her father and a stranger at the table. like a family, like nothing was wrong. But Camilla felt the weight of it. The guns she'd noticed in holsters on the security guards, the cameras tracking every corner, the fact that this sweet child lived in a fortress because her father was dangerous enough to need one. After dinner, Arya insisted on showing Camilla her room, decorated in purple and white, books stacked everywhere, popsicle stick planets scattered across her desk. "I like you," Arya announced suddenly. "You don't talk to me like I'm stupid. You're clearly not stupid. Papa's last girlfriend was stupid. She called me sweetie in that voice adults use." Arya rolled her eyes with perfect 8-year-old disdain. "What happened to her?" "Papa made her leave, said she didn't fit." Arya flopped onto her bed. "Do you fit?" The question lodged in Camilla's throat. "I don't know yet." "You should try. It's nice having someone here who's not a guard or Maria." The girl's eyes were too old for her face, too knowing. "It gets lonely." Camilla sat on the edge of the bed. "I bet it does." "Papa tries, but he's always working, always on the phone." Arya picked at her comforter. "Do you have kids?" "No." "Do you want them?" "I don't know. I never really thought about it." "Why not?" "Because Grant never wanted children. Because children meant less control. Because the thought of bringing a life into that penthouse prison made her want to vomit." "It's complicated," Camilla said. "Adults always say that when they don't want to explain." "Fair point." A knock at the door. Lucien appeared, leaning against the frame. "Bedtime, Arya." "It's only 8:30. School tomorrow. You know the rules." Arya groaned dramatically but started getting ready, shooing them both out while she changed into pajamas. Lucien walked Camilla toward the stairs. "She likes you." "She's lonely." "Yes." "This isn't healthy, raising a child in a fortress. Neither is raising her in the city where my enemies know her face." Lucien's voice hardened. "I do the best I can with what I have." "Which is billions of dollars and armed guards." "Which is love and impossible choices." He stopped at the top of the stairs. "You think I want her growing up like this?" "Then change." "And do what? Abandon everything I've built? Let the people who depend on me fend for themselves?" Lucien's eyes flashed. "The world isn't that simple, Camilla. Neither is raising a child in a crime empire. You've been here 6 hours. Don't presume to lecture me on my daughter." The words were sharp enough to draw blood. Camilla stepped back. "You're right. I'm sorry. It's none of my business." Lucien's expression softened slightly. "She needs normal. Needs people who aren't guards or staff. If you can give her a few moments of that while you're here, I'd appreciate it." "I'll try." He nodded, then headed back to Arya's room for good-night routines. Camilla retreated to her suite, closing the door on the impossible situation she'd fallen into. A gangster. His daughter. A missing persons report. And her, caught in the middle of something she didn't understand and couldn't escape. She stood at the windows again, looking out at nothing. Somewhere in the darkness, her phone buzzed to life on the nightstand. Lucien must have turned it on. 17 missed calls from Grant. 42 text messages, the most recent. "I know you're scared. Come home. We'll fix this together. I love you." Camilla's hands shook. She'd seen this playbook before. Anger, then concern, then love bombing, cycling through every tool in his arsenal to bring her back. But underneath the pretty words was the truth. If she went back, she'd never leave again. She turned the phone off, threw it in a drawer, made her choice for the second time in 24 hours. Whatever happened next, she was done being Grant Holloway's possession, even if it meant becoming Lucien Moretti's weapon instead. But 3 days passed in strange suspension. Camilla existed in the estate like a ghost. Mornings with coffee watching the lake. Afternoons reading in the library while Lucien worked behind closed doors. His voice rising occasionally in Italian or English, always controlled, always commanding. Evenings with Arya, who attached herself to Camilla like a barnacle, chattering about school and friends, and the million thoughts bouncing around her 8-year-old brain. Maria watched everything with neutral eyes, cooking meals and managing the house, and never asking questions Camilla couldn't answer. Security guards patrolled the grounds. Cameras tracked movement. The fortress stayed locked, and Camilla slowly went insane from inactivity. On the fourth day, she cornered Lucien in his office. He looked up from 3 computer screens and a phone call, eyebrow raised. I need to do something, Camilla said. Lucien held up one finger. Wait. Finished his call. Set the phone down. Such as? Anything. Work. Help Maria. Something besides reading books and playing with your daughter. Aria likes you. I like her too. That's not the point. What is the point? Camilla moved into the office, closing the door. The point is I'm going crazy hiding here. I need purpose. She stopped, searching for words. I used to be a nurse. I used to help people. Now I'm just waiting to be safe, waiting to exist again. Lucien studied her. What do you want to do? I don't know, but there has to be something. He was quiet for a moment, then pulled up something on one of his screens. The community center I mentioned, the one Grant tried to shut down. What about it? They run a free clinic 3 days a week. Always need medical staff. Lucien glanced at her. You still licensed? Yes, but I haven't practiced in years. Skills don't disappear. Hope flickered in her chest. You're serious. It's volunteer work. Low profile. Most patients are undocumented or uninsured, so they don't ask questions. Lucien leaned back. You'd need to use a different name. Keep your head down. But if you want to help people, it's an option. Grant would never think to look there. Exactly. Camilla's mind raced. Real work, real purpose, a reason to exist beyond hiding. When can I start? Tomorrow, if you're sure. I'm sure. Lucien nodded. I'll make arrangements. She turned to leave, then stopped. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. The clinic's in rough shape. You'll be working with limited supplies, difficult cases, and people who have every reason not to trust anyone in authority. So basically like County General, but with less bureaucracy. His mouth twitched, almost a smile. Something like that. The clinic was everything Lucien had warned and nothing she expected. Set in the basement of the community center in a neighborhood where English was a 3rd or 4th language, the space consisted of 3 exam rooms, a waiting area with folding chairs, and supplies that looked like they'd been scavenged from hospital donations and garage sales. The staff was 2 nurses, 1 part-time doctor, and a rotating cast of volunteers who did intake and translation. Camilla walked in wearing jeans and a sweater, her hair pulled back, using the name Maria Reyes. The head nurse, Carmen, looked her up and down. You're Lucien's friend? Yes. He says you have ER experience. 8 years. Haven't practiced in a while, though. Can you start an IV? Yes. Stitch a wound? Yes. Work with patients who don't speak English and don't trust you? I'll manage. Carmen grunted. We'll see. Clinic opens in 10 minutes. You're on intake and basic care. Anything complicated, you get me or Dr. Santos. Clear? Clear. The next 6 hours were chaos. Patients flooded in the moment doors opened. Construction workers with infected cuts, kids with ear infections. Elderly patients with blood pressure through the roof. A woman in labor who didn't make it to the hospital in time. Delivering a healthy baby girl on an exam table while Camilla coached her through breathing and Carmen handled the medical logistics. It was messy and desperate and the most alive Camilla had felt in 8 years. She fell back into rhythms her body remembered. Checking vitals, reading symptoms, offering comfort in broken Spanish and hand gestures and the universal language of actually giving a damn. By the time they closed at 8, Camilla was exhausted, sweating, her clothes stained with God knew what, and she felt like herself again. Carmen found her cleaning the last exam room. Not bad for someone who hasn't practiced in years. Thanks. Lucien send a lot of people here? I don't know. Does he? Sometimes. People who need help off the books. Carmen's eyes were sharp. You running from something? Camilla met her gaze. Isn't everyone? Fair. Carmen handed her a clinic schedule. You want to come back? Yes. 3 days a week, same hours. We don't pay. I don't need payment. Carmen nodded slowly. Okay, Maria. See you Thursday. You. Walking out into the night, Camilla felt lighter than she had in days. Real work, real purpose, real people who needed help and didn't care about her past or her name or the billionaire hunting for her across the city. Lucien's car waited at the curb, one of his security guards behind the wheel. She slid into the back seat, still riding the high of actually being useful. "How was it?" the guard asked. Young guy, maybe 25, polite. "Good, really good." They drove back to the estate in silence. Camilla watched the city blur past, lights and movement and life happening while she existed in the margins. But for the first time since leaving Grant, those margins felt like freedom instead of hiding. When they pulled up to the house, Lucien stood on the front steps waiting. Camilla climbed out, suddenly self-conscious about her disheveled appearance. "Well?" he asked. "I'm going back Thursday." Something shifted in his expression. Approval, maybe? Or relief? "Good," he said simply. They walked inside together, Camilla heading for the stairs and a desperately needed shower. "Camilla." She turned. Lucien stood in the hallway, backlit by the chandelier, looking almost human for once. "I'm glad you found something," he said quietly. "Me too." She climbed the stairs, stripped off her filthy clothes, stood under water hot enough to scald. For 8 years, Grant had slowly dismantled everything she used to be. The nurse, the helper, the person who cared. Now, piece by piece, she was building it back. And she had Lucien Moretti, dangerous, calculating, impossible, to thank for it. The irony wasn't lost on her. The call came at 3 a.m. on her 10th day at the estate. Camilla woke to shouting, footsteps pounding through hallways, car engines roaring to life outside. She threw on clothes and ran downstairs to find controlled chaos, guards moving with weapons drawn, Maria hustling Aria toward a panic room Camilla hadn't known existed. And Lucien in the center of it all, phone pressed to his ear, his voice ice. "How many?" he demanded. Pause. "Where exactly?" Pause. "Lock it down. Nobody in or out until I say." He ended the call, eyes finding Camilla. "Get back upstairs." "What's happening?" Grant made a move, sent people to the clinic. Her blood turned to slush. "When?" "Hour ago. They've been watching it for days. Saw you leave tonight." "They know where I am?" "They know you're connected to the clinic. They don't know about here. Yet." Lucien moved toward the door. "But we're not taking chances." "Where are you going?" "To remind Grant that there are consequences for coming after what's mine." The possessiveness in those words should have bothered her. Instead, it ignited something fierce in her chest. "I'm coming with you," Camilla said. "No." "It's my fight. It's my city." Lucien's. Ian stopped at the door, turning to face her fully. "You want to help? Stay here. Keep Aria calm. Let me handle this." "Handle it how?" His smile was a blade. "However I need to." Then he was gone, SUVs roaring down the driveway into the night. Camilla stood in the empty foyer, heart hammering. Grant had found her trail, found the clinic, found proof she was alive and hiding and building a life without him. And now Lucien Moretti was going to war. The question was whether Camilla would survive the crossfire, or if she'd already chosen a side without realizing it. Camilla didn't sleep. She sat in Aria's room watching the little girl breathe, one hand resting on the child's back, feeling each rise and fall. The panic room door stood open now. Maria had declared the immediate threat past, but Camilla couldn't shake the feeling that everything was about to detonate. 4 a.m. became 5. 5 became 6. Dawn bled across Lake Michigan in shades of bruised purple and angry red. Still no word from Lucien. Maria appeared in the doorway with coffee. "You should rest." "Can't." "He'll be fine. He always is." "You don't know that." Maria's expression softened slightly. "I've worked for Lucien Moretti for 15 years. I've seen him walk into worse situations than this and come back without a scratch." She set the coffee on the nightstand. "Have faith. Faith in a man who solved problems by burying people. Faith in a gangster who'd been watching her for months before orchestrating her rescue. Faith in someone she'd known for less than 2 weeks. Camilla's laugh came out hollow. "I don't even know what I have faith in anymore." "Then have faith that he protects what's his." There was that word again. His. As if Camilla had become another possession in Lucien's carefully curated collection. Different from Grant's ownership, maybe, wrapped in kindness and protection instead of cruelty and control. But possession nonetheless. The sound of car engines cut through the morning quiet. Camilla was on her feet instantly, racing downstairs with Maria close behind. The front door opened. Lucien walked in looking exactly the same as when he'd left. Suit pristine, expression controlled, not a hair out of place. Behind him, two of his guards carried someone between them. Someone bleeding. Someone wearing a suit that costs more than most people's rent. Camilla's world tilted. "Grant," she breathed. Lucien's eyes found hers, cold, empty. "Get Arya out of the house." Maria moved immediately, heading back upstairs. Camilla stood frozen as the guards dragged Grant past her toward what looked like a wine cellar entrance. Her husband, ex-husband, barely conscious, one eye swollen shut, blood streaming from his nose, and a cut above his eyebrow. He saw her. Recognition flared through the pain. "Camilla," Grant croaked, "help me." Every instinct screamed to move, to help. 8 years of nursing training, of saving lives, of being the person who stepped in when others stepped back. But her feet stayed rooted to the marble floor. "Keep moving," Lucien ordered his guards. They dragged Grant down the stairs into darkness. The cellar door slammed shut. Silence crashed over the foyer. Camilla's hands shook. Her pulse hammered against her skull. "What did you do?" "What needed to be done." Lucien moved toward his office. "That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting right now." She followed him, fury rising to replace shock. "You kidnapped him. You brought him to your house, to the house where your daughter sleeps. Arya's being taken to her grandmother's as we speak. She's safe." "That's not the point." Lucien spun to face her. "Then what is the point, Camilla? You want me to apologize for protecting you, for stopping the men he sent to the clinic from finding you? I want you to tell me what the hell is happening." Grant hired mercenaries to watch the community center. When they confirmed you were volunteering there, he mobilized a team to extract you. Lucien's voice stayed level, but something dangerous moved behind his eyes. "They were going to take you tonight, drug you, transport you to a private facility he has connections with. 72-hour hold, just like I warned, except it wouldn't have been 72 hours. It would have been however long it took to break you completely." The words hit like fists. Camilla's vision swam. "I intercepted them," Lucien continued, "convinced them to share who hired them and how much he paid. Then I went to Grant's penthouse and had a conversation about boundaries." "A conversation?" Camilla looked at the cellar door. "He's bleeding. He's breathing. That's more mercy than he deserves. You can't just kidnap people." "I can do whatever I want in my city," Lucien's voice dropped. "And right now, what I want is Grant Holloway understanding that you are under my protection, that coming after you means going through me, that he picked a fight with the wrong man." The possessiveness again. The casual certainty that he could take someone, hurt someone, keep someone locked in his basement because they'd threatened his interests. Camilla backed away. "You're insane." "I'm effective. You're a criminal. We established that already." Lucien moved closer. "What did you think would happen, Camilla? You thought I'd file a restraining order, call the police who are on Grant's payroll, play by rules he wrote? I thought you'd help me disappear, start over, not start a war. Grant started the war when he sent men to take you against your will. I'm finishing it. By becoming exactly like him?" The words hung between them, sharp enough to cut. Lucien's expression went cold. "I am nothing like Grant Holloway." "Really? Because right now you both seem pretty comfortable deciding what happens to me without asking. I'm keeping you alive. By making me complicit in kidnapping. You want to leave?" Lucien gestured toward the door. "Go. Walk out. See how long you last before Grant's people find you, or the police, or the media he's mobilized to paint you as a mentally unstable woman who abandoned her devoted husband." Camilla's chest tightened. She wanted to scream, wanted to run, wanted to rewind 2 weeks and make different choices. But there was nowhere to run anymore. "What are you going to do with him?" she asked quietly. "Get information. Find out what else he's planning. Who else he's paid." Lucien's voice gentled slightly. "Then I'll decide." "Decide what?" "How much mercy he's earned." The casual way he said it made her stomach turn. "I need air," Camilla said. She pushed past him, through the kitchen, out onto the back terrace overlooking the lake. Dawn had fully broken now, painting the water in shades of gold and copper. beautiful, peaceful, nothing like the chaos consuming her life. Footsteps approached. Lucienne stood beside her, not touching, just present. "I'm sorry," he said finally. "For what?" "For not preparing you. For moving without telling you first." He stared out at the water. "I'm used to operating alone, making decisions without consultation. It's how I've survived this long." "I'm not one of your soldiers." "I know." "Then stop treating me like a chess piece you're moving around the board." Lucian turned to face her. "What do you want from me, Camilla?" "I want the truth. All of it. No more strategic omissions or careful revelations." She met his eyes. "Why are you really doing this?" "I told you." "Bullshit. You didn't prepare a closet full of clothes and orchestrate my rescue just to settle a business dispute." Camilla's voice rose. "What do you actually want?" For the first time since she'd met him, Lucienne hesitated. "I want Grant Holloway destroyed," he said finally. "Completely. Permanently. I want his empire dismantled, his reputation ruined, his power stripped away until he's nothing." "Why?" "Because men like him operate with impunity. They hurt people and face no consequences. They use their wealth and connections to escape justice, while the people they destroy suffer in silence." Lucian's hands clenched. "I'm tired of watching it happen." "So this is about justice? This is about making sure one less monster sleeps safely in his tower while the bodies pile up beneath it." The intensity in his voice made her shiver. "And me?" Camilla asked. "Where do I fit in this crusade?" "You're the proof. The evidence that Grant isn't the saint he pretends to be." Lucienne's eyes held hers. "Every bruise he left on your soul, every piece of yourself he forced you to destroy, every moment of the last 8 years you spent being his perfect accessory. That's the truth I'm going to show the world." Understanding crashed over her like a wave. "You're going to use me against him. I'm going to give you a platform to tell your story, if you want it. And if I don't, then you hide here for the rest of your life while Grant continues operating exactly like he always has. Your choice." It wasn't really a choice. It was an ultimatum wrapped in the illusion of agency. Stay silent and remain a victim, or speak and become a weapon. Camilla turned back to the lake, watching sunlight dance across the surface. "I need to think," she said. "Take your time." Lucienne started back toward the house, then paused. "For what it's worth, I am sorry. About all of it. You deserved a clean escape, a chance to rebuild without this kind of violence. But that's not the world we live in. No, it's not." He left her alone with the sunrise and impossible choices. So, 3 hours later, Camilla descended into the wine cellar. The stairs were old stone, worn smooth by decades of footsteps. The air smelled like earth and blood, and expensive wine aging in oak barrels. Grant sat in a chair in the center of the space, wrists zip-tied, one guard posted near the door, still bleeding, still conscious, eyes tracking her movement with desperate hope. "Camilla, thank God," his voice cracked. "You have to help me. This man is insane. He kidnapped me, assaulted me. We can go to the police together." "Shut up, Grant." The words came out flat, empty. Nothing like the desperate placating she'd perfected over 8 years. Grant's expression shifted, confusion replacing hope. Camilla pulled up a chair, sitting just out of his reach. "How many men did you send to the clinic?" "What?" "The mercenaries, the extraction team. How many?" "I don't know what you're—" "Don't lie to me. Not now. Not here." She leaned forward. "How many men were you going to use to drug me and drag me to whatever facility you had prepared?" Grant's jaw tightened. 6. Professional contractors. "I was trying to help you." "Help me?" "You're clearly not well, Camilla. Running away, hiding with criminals. You need treatment, stability." The gaslighting was so familiar it almost felt comforting. Almost. "What was the plan after you had me committed?" she asked. "To get you the help you need." "The truth, Grant." His eyes hardened. There. The real Grant underneath the concerned husband act. "Indefinite hold. Power of attorney transferred to me for medical decisions. Treatment that would help you understand your place." "My place. You're my wife. You belong with me. I built you from nothing, gave you everything." Grant leaned forward as far as his restraints allowed. You think this criminal gives a damn about you? He's using you to get to me. The moment you're not useful anymore, you'll disappear. Maybe, but at least he's honest about it. He's a monster. So are you. The difference is he doesn't pretend otherwise. Grant's expression twisted. I loved you. I gave you the world. You gave me a cage. You gave me 8 years of systematic destruction disguised as devotion. Camilla's voice stayed steady. You made me forget who I was, made me believe I was nothing without you, made me so afraid of losing your approval that I lost myself instead. That's not... Yes, it is, and you know it. She stood. I came down here because I needed to see you like this, powerless, bleeding, unable to hurt me anymore. Camilla, please. I'm done, Grant. With you. With your control. With the 8 years I wasted trying to be someone worthy of your love. She moved toward the stairs. Lucian can do whatever he wants with you. I don't care anymore. You do care. Grant's voice rose, desperate now. You came down here because you still need closure. You still need me to validate your decision to leave. That's who you are, Camilla. You're weak. You've always been weak. You'll come crawling back because you can't survive without... She didn't turn around. Didn't give him the satisfaction. Just climbed the stairs and closed the door on his shouting. The guard posted outside nodded to her. Ma'am? How long will he be down there? As long as Mr. Moretti wants. Camilla nodded and kept walking. She found Lucien in his office, 3 computer screens glowing with financial data and encrypted messages. I want to testify, she said from the doorway. He looked up. Against Grant? Yes. Whatever you're building, whatever case you're putting together, I want to be part of it. It'll destroy you publicly. Every detail of your marriage will become news. Every humiliation will be dissected by strangers. I know. Grant's lawyers will paint you as unstable, gold-digging, vindictive. Let them. Lucian studied her. What changed? I saw him powerless. Saw what he becomes when he can't control the narrative. Camilla moved into the office. You were right. If I hide, he wins. If I speak, maybe someone else in my position hears the truth and gets out sooner than I did. Something shifted in Lucian's expression. Respect, maybe, or recognition. Okay, he said. I'll make arrangements. When? Soon. I'm still gathering evidence. Financial crimes, bribery, everything that'll stick in federal court. He turned back to his screens. Your testimony will be the foundation. Everything else builds from there. Camilla nodded. What about him? Downstairs? He stays until I'm ready to deliver him to the authorities, with enough evidence that no judge he owns can make it disappear. How long? A week. Maybe less. And if he has people looking for him, let them look. Lucien's smile was cold. No one finds anything in my city unless I want them to. The certainty in his voice should have been reassuring. Instead, it reminded her just how dangerous the man protecting her really was. The call came at midnight on the 6th day. Camilla woke to shouting again. Different this time. Panicked instead of controlled. She ran downstairs to chaos. Guards rushing through hallways, Maria on the phone speaking rapid Spanish, and Lucien standing in the foyer, phone pressed to his ear, his expression darker than she'd ever seen it. How many? He demanded. Pause. Armed? Pause. Lock down the community center. Get everyone out. Now. He ended the call, eyes finding Camilla. We have a problem. What kind? Grant's people hit the clinic, burned it to the ground. Her blood turned to ice. When? 20 minutes ago. Everyone got out safely, but the building's gone. Carmen? Dr. Santos? Safe. Scared, but safe. Lucian's jaw tightened. They left a message spray-painted on the side wall before they torched it. What message? Give her back. The words hung in the air like poison. He escaped, Camilla said. No, he's still downstairs. Lucien moved toward his office. But someone knows we have him. Someone coordinated this as retaliation. Who? I'm about to find out. Camilla followed him down the stairs to the wine cellar. Grant looked worse than before. Days of minimal food and sleep had hollowed his face. The swelling around his eye had turned purple and yellow. but his eyes still burned with that familiar intensity. "Let me guess," Grant said as they entered. "Someone hit one of your properties, and now you're wondering how they knew where to strike." "Talk," Lucien ordered. "I'll make you a deal. Let me go, and the attacks stop." "You're not in a position to make deals," Grant laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "You think I came to Chicago alone? You think I built my empire without contingencies?" He leaned forward. "I have people loyal to me. People who know that if I don't check in every 48 hours, they activate protocols." "What protocols?" "Systematic destruction of everything you care about. The community center was just the start." Grant's smile was vicious. "Next is the after-school program, then the food bank, then the free clinic at St. Vincent's. Every charitable operation you fund gets burned to ash until you return what's mine." Lucian's expression stayed neutral, but Camilla saw his hands clench. "You're bluffing," he said. "Am I? Check your phone. I'm betting you have 3 more fires reported in the last hour." Lucian pulled out his phone, scrolled. His jaw tightened incrementally. Grant's laugh filled the cellar. "There it is. Welcome to consequences, Mr. Moretti. You took something from me, so I'm taking something from you. Except I'm not stopping until you break." "These are innocent people. I don't care." Grant's eyes found Camilla. "You chose to involve yourself in my marriage. You chose to hide my wife. You chose this war. Now watch your empire burn because of it." Lucien moved fast, crossing the space in 2 strides, grabbing Grant by the throat, slamming him back against the chair hard enough to make it skid across concrete. "You want war?" Lucian's voice dropped to something barely human. "I'll give you war. I'll dismantle everything you've ever built. I'll expose every crime you've committed. I'll make sure you spend the rest of your miserable life in a federal prison being someone's property for a change." Grant smiled through the chokehold. "Do it. But know that every day I'm here, more people suffer, more buildings burn, more of your precious charitable work turns to ash." His eyes gleamed. "The only way this stops is if you give me back my wife." The words hit Camilla like a physical blow. This was her fault. The clinic burning, people losing their medical care, families losing their support systems, all because she'd run and Lucien had helped her hide. "Let him go," she said quietly. Lucien's grip tightened. "No. People are getting hurt because of me. People were getting hurt long before you ran. This is who Grant is. This is what he does. Then let him do it to me instead of them." "Camilla, I'll go back." The words came out hollow. "I'll go back to him if it stops the attacks." Grant's smile widened. "Smart girl." Lucien released him, spinning to face Camilla. "Absolutely not. It's my choice. It's a trap. The moment you go back, he'll make sure you never leave again. Institutionalized, medicated, disappeared. Then people stop losing everything because I was selfish enough to think I deserved freedom." "You do deserve freedom. Not at this cost." The shout echoed off stone walls. Silence crashed down. Camilla's hands shook. "How many more places will he burn, Lucien? How many more people have to suffer before you admit that keeping me here isn't worth it? You're worth everything." The intensity in his voice made her flinch. "I'm not," she said quietly. "I'm just one person. Those programs serve hundreds, thousands." She looked at Grant, still smiling in his chair. "Let me go back. End this." "No. It's not your choice." "I'm making it my choice." Lucien moved between her and Grant. "We find another way." "There is no other way." Grant's voice rose. "Either I go home with my wife, or Chicago watches everything Lucien Moretti claims to care about burn to the ground. Those are the options." Camilla felt the walls closing in. No escape, no good choice. Just 2 bad men fighting over her like she was a trophy, while innocent people paid the price. She turned and ran up the stairs, made it to the kitchen before Lucien caught her arm. "Don't," he said. "Don't what? Don't do the right thing? Don't save people?" "Going back to Grant isn't saving anyone. It's sacrificing yourself for a temporary ceasefire." "Then what's your solution?" Camilla spun to face him. "Because unless you're planning to murder him, he's going to keep burning everything you care about until I'm back under his control." Lucien's silence was answer enough. "Oh my God," Camilla breathed. "You're actually considering it." "I'm considering every option. Murder isn't an option." "Why not? Because it's illegal? Immoral? Wrong?" Lucien's voice hardened. I've done worse things for lesser reasons. If killing Grant Holloway saves hundreds of families from losing their only medical care, their only food source, their only hope, yes, I'm considering it. That makes you exactly like him. No, it makes me someone willing to make impossible choices while you stand there pretending there's a moral high ground in this situation. The truth of it was a knife between her ribs. There was no moral high ground. There was only choosing which people got hurt and how badly. I can't do this, Camilla whispered. I can't be the reason people suffer. Then help me find another way. There is no other way. He's not going to stop. He's going to keep escalating until he gets what he wants, or you kill him. Those are the only endings to this story. Lucian was quiet for a long moment. Then, what if there was a third option? What? What if we give Grant exactly what he thinks he wants, but on our terms? Camilla's stomach dropped. Explain. We stage your return. Make it look like you're going back to him willingly. He calls off the attacks thinking he's won. Lucien's eyes gleamed. Meanwhile, we use the access to finish gathering evidence, get everything we need to destroy him legally. Then we extract you before he can institutionalize you. That's insane. It's strategic. It's suicide. The moment I'm back in that penthouse, I'm under his control. He'll have guards, cameras. He'll never let me out of his sight. Which is why we plant surveillance on you, track everything, record every threat, every violation, every piece of evidence we need. And if something goes wrong, if he moves faster than you expect, then I come get you. How? However I have to. The casual certainty in his voice made her want to scream and cry and laugh all at once. This was madness. Going back to Grant, even temporarily, even with Lucien's promises of extraction and evidence gathering. But what was the alternative? More fires? More people losing the services they depended on? Or Lucian murdering Grant and becoming exactly the monster everyone believed him to be? How long? Camilla asked. 48 hours. Maybe 72. Just long enough to get what we need. And you'll get me out? I swear it. On what? On Arya's life? On your dead wife's memory? What oath could you possibly make that I'd believe? Lucien crossed to her, taking her face in both hands. I swear on the fact that I have spent 3 months watching you survive something that would have destroyed most people. I swear on the fact that you walked into a storm rather than accept one more humiliation. I swear on the fact that somewhere in the last 2 weeks, keeping you safe became more important to me than anything else in this godforsaken city. His thumbs brushed her cheekbones. His eyes held hers with an intensity that made breathing difficult. I will come for you, he said quietly, even if I have to burn Chicago down to do it. Camilla believed him. God help her. She believed him. Okay, she whispered. Okay, but I have conditions. Name them. Carmen and Dr. Santos get protection until this is over. Security, safe housing, whatever they need. Done. The community center gets rebuilt, better than before, with funding that doesn't disappear if something happens to you. Already planned. And Arya never finds out about any of this, ever. As far as she knows, I left because I needed to go home. Something flickered across Lucian's face. Agreed. One more thing. Anything. If this goes wrong, if Grant does get me committed or disappeared or... Her voice cracked. Don't let him win. Don't let what he did to me get buried. Make sure people know. It won't come to that. Promise me anyway. Lucien's hands tightened on her face. I promise. But you're coming home, Camilla. You're coming back here. To safety. To Arya. To... He stopped himself. But she heard the unspoken word anyway. To me. When do we start? Camilla asked. Tomorrow. I'll arrange the exchange. Public location. Cameras. Witnesses. Make it look real enough that Grant believes he's won. He'll want the exchange private. Controlled. Let him want. We do this in daylight where I have oversight, or we don't do it at all. Camilla nodded, pulled back from his touch even though part of her wanted to stay exactly where she was. I should try to sleep, she said. You won't. No, but I should try anyway. She made it to the stairs before his voice stopped her. Camilla. She turned. Lucian stood in the kitchen, looking more human than she'd ever seen him. Uncertain. Almost afraid. I meant what I said, he told her. All of it. I know. She climbed to her room and didn't sleep at all. Just stood at the windows watching Lake Michigan reflect moonlight like shattered glass, wondering if she'd just agreed to walk back into hell with nothing but a gangster's promise for protection. Wondering if 48 hours would be enough time to gather evidence. Wondering if she'd survive long enough to find out. Wondering if the woman who walked back into that penthouse tomorrow would be the same one who walked out 2 weeks ago. Knowing, deep down, that she wouldn't be. That she couldn't be. That survival meant becoming something harder, something sharper, something capable of looking Grant Holloway in the eye and lying perfectly while Lucien Moretti dismantled his empire from the inside. The question wasn't whether she could do it. The question was whether she'd recognize herself when it was over. Dawn came too fast. Camilla descended the stairs at 6 a.m. wearing clothes Lucien's people had provided. Designer label, perfectly fitted, exactly the kind of thing Grant would approve of. The costume felt like a second skin she'd shed and was now being forced back into. Lucien waited in the kitchen with coffee and a small black device about the size of a button. Surveillance, he explained, holding it up. Activated by voice. Records everything within 20 feet. We'll know every word he says, every threat he makes, every piece of evidence we need. Where does it go? Inside your watch band. Undetectable unless someone's specifically looking for it. He fastened it carefully, his fingers steady against her wrist. You'll have a panic word, Lucien continued, something you can work into conversation naturally. The moment I hear it, I'm coming for you. Extraction team moves within 5 minutes. What's the word? Your choice. Camilla thought for a moment. Velvet. Like the club? Like the first place I felt safe in 8 years. Something crossed his face. He nodded. Velvet it is. They drove into the city in silence. Dawn traffic was light. The world looked almost normal. People commuting to work, grabbing coffee, living lives that didn't involve staging fake reconciliations with abusive billionaires. The exchange point was Grant Plaza, the crown jewel of Grant's development empire. A public square with fountains and sculptures and security cameras covering every angle. Lucien parked 2 blocks away. He'll have people watching, Lucien said, waiting for me to make a move. We play this straight. You walk to him. I drive away. He thinks he's won. And then? Then you survive 48 hours while we finish what we started. His eyes met hers. Remember, the watch records everything. Give us what we need to bury him. Camilla's hands shook. She pressed them flat against her thighs. I'm scared, she admitted. Good. Fear keeps you sharp. Lucien reached across, squeezing her hand once. You're stronger than you know, Camilla. Stronger than Grant, stronger than me, probably. I don't feel strong. Strength isn't what you feel, it's what you do when you're terrified and do it anyway. She nodded. Couldn't speak past the lump in her throat. Go, Lucien said quietly, before I change my mind and kill him instead. Camilla opened the door, stepped out into Chicago morning, started walking. The plaza opened up before her, morning light sparkling off fountains, early commuters cutting through with coffee cups and briefcases. And there, standing beside his town car with 2 bodyguards flanking him, was Grant. He looked terrible. The beating Lucien had given him had faded, but not disappeared. His suit hung slightly wrong, like he'd lost weight. But his eyes burned with the same intensity she remembered. Possession, ownership, victory. She kept walking. 20 feet, 15, 10. Grant's smile widened. I knew you'd come back. Camilla stopped just out of reach. Call off the attacks. Of course. The moment we're home. He extended his hand. Come on, darling. Let's go fix this. Every instinct screamed to run. Instead, Camilla took his hand. His fingers closed around hers, too tight, possessive, claiming, and she felt the trap snap shut. That's my girl, Grant murmured. Let's go home. He guided her toward the car. The bodyguards opened the door. The interior smelled like leather and cologne and 8 years of suffocation. Camilla climbed inside. Grant slid in beside her. The door closed. The locks engaged with a soft click that sounded like prison bars slamming shut. The car pulled away from the curb. Through the tinted window, Camilla caught one last glimpse of Lucien's SUV parked 2 blocks away. Then Grant's hand settled on her thigh, squeezing hard enough to bruise. "Did you really think I'd let you go?" he whispered against her ear. "Did you really think that criminal could protect you from me?" Camilla's blood turned to ice. "I know about the surveillance," Grant continued, his voice soft and terrible. "I know about Moretti's plan. I know about everything, Camilla. Because the man you've been trusting for the last 2 weeks?" He smiled. "Works for me." The world tilted. "No," Camilla breathed. "Yes." Grant pulled out his phone, showing her a text conversation. Messages between him and someone identified only as LM. Planning her rescue. Orchestrating her hiding. Gathering her trust. All of it strategy. All of it lies. "Lucien Moretti doesn't give a damn about you," Grant said. "He's been feeding me information since the beginning. The clinic. The surveillance. The extraction plan. Every detail you shared with him came straight to me." "You're lying." "Am I? Then why did I know exactly where to send the mercenaries? Why did I burn the clinic right when it would hurt you most? Why am I sitting here with you in my car while Moretti drives away without a fight?" Because it was part of the plan, Camilla wanted to scream. Because they were gathering evidence. Because Lucien promised. But Grant's phone showed texts, detailed coordination, proof that everything she'd trusted was a lie. The best part? Grant's smile widened. "I paid him $5 million to make you desperate enough to come back to me. To make you feel so grateful for his protection that returning home would feel like your choice, like your sacrifice." "No," Camilla's voice broke. "No, that's not—" "It is. And now you're mine again, permanently this time." Grant's hand moved to her throat, not squeezing, just resting. A reminder of power. "Welcome home, darling. I've had your room at the facility prepared, very comfortable, very secure. Somewhere you can get the help you clearly need." The car turned onto Lakeshore Drive, heading north. Not toward the penthouse, toward something else. Somewhere isolated. Somewhere she'd disappear. Camilla looked down at her watch. The surveillance device Lucien had installed. The panic words she could speak. If any of it was real, if Lucien hadn't betrayed her from the beginning, if this wasn't exactly what Grant had planned all along, making her so desperate, so isolated, so dependent that she'd walk right back into his hands thinking she was playing a role, when really she was just being played. Her chest constricted. Breath wouldn't come. The city blurred outside the window. Grant's hand tightened on her throat. Just slightly, just enough. "Nothing to say?" he asked. "No clever response? No defiance?" Camilla forced herself to breathe, forced herself to think past the panic screaming through her veins. Real or not, the surveillance was her only chance. She looked straight ahead, voice steady despite the terror clawing at her throat, and said, "This whole situation reminds me of that jazz club, Velvet Hour, the night you destroyed everything." Grant's hand loosened slightly. "What?" "Just thinking about that night, how velvet curtains can hide so many terrible things." The panic word, spoken twice. If Lucien was listening, if the device worked, if any of this was real. If not, she'd just wasted her last card on a bluff. Grant's eyes narrowed. "What are you talking about?" "Nothing, just nervous." Camilla forced a smile. "Where are we going?" "Somewhere safe. Somewhere you'll finally learn to appreciate everything I've given you." The car drove north. Minutes ticked past. No extraction team appeared, no cavalry came charging over the hill. Just Chicago scrolling past the window while Grant's hand stayed possessive on her throat, and Camilla realized that maybe, just maybe, she'd been played by everyone. That trust was a weapon, that kindness was a trap, that the only person she could truly rely on was herself. And right now herself was locked in a car with a monster, heading toward a fate worse than death, with nothing but a surveillance device that might be recording everything or might be recording nothing at all. She'd made her choice. Now she had to survive it, or die trying. The facility appeared after 40 minutes of driving through suburbs that gradually gave way to nothing. Trees, empty roads, a driveway marked only by a small brass plaque reading Lakeside Retreat. Retreat, as if this was voluntary. The building was modern, all glass and steel like Lucien's estate, but colder somehow. Clinical. Windows that didn't open. Security cameras tracking every angle. A fence disguised as landscaping. A cage dressed up as healing. The car stopped at the entrance. Grant's hand finally left Camilla's throat, leaving phantom pressure behind. Out, he said. She didn't move. Couldn't. Every muscle locked. Out, Camilla. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. The bodyguards opened both doors simultaneously, one on Grant's side, one on hers. Escape vectors eliminated. Camilla's hand brushed the watch, the surveillance device. Her last hope that someone was listening, that Lucien hadn't betrayed her, that the texts Grant showed her were fabricated, that this wasn't the end. She climbed out into autumn air that smelled like pine and medicinal cleaning supplies. The facility loomed. 2 orderlies and scrubs waited by the entrance, both built like they'd done security work in previous lives. Miss Holloway, one of them said with practiced warmth, welcome to Lakeside. I'm Thomas. This is Jennifer. We're here to help you through your intake process. I don't need intake, Camilla said. I don't need to be here. That's a very common feeling in the first few hours, Jennifer replied, moving closer. Many of our patients experience resistance initially. It's part of the process. I'm not a patient. Camilla, Grant's voice carried warning. These people are professionals. They're here to help you. I don't need help. I need... Thomas's hand closed around her upper arm, gentle but immovable. Why don't we go inside and get you settled? I think you'll find the accommodations very comfortable. Camilla tried to pull away. His grip tightened. Don't make this difficult, Grant murmured. You can walk in cooperating, or you can be carried. Your choice. She looked at the orderlies, the bodyguards. Grant with his bruised face and cold eyes. 4 against 1. 5 if she counted the driver still in the car. The math was simple. Camilla let Thomas guide her toward the entrance. The lobby was all soothing colors and soft lighting. Watercolor paintings of lakes and forests. A reception desk staffed by a woman with kind eyes and an intake clipboard. Elevator music playing just loud enough to fill the silence. Everything designed to feel safe. Everything a lie. Mr. Holloway, the receptionist said warmly, Dr. Morrison is waiting in his office. Should I take Miss Holloway to her room? I'll accompany her for intake, Grant said. Make sure she's comfortable. Make sure she understood she was trapped. They took an elevator to the 3rd floor, down a hallway where every door had a small window reinforced with wire mesh. Some rooms were occupied, people sitting on beds, staring at walls, existing in medicated fog. This was Camilla's future if Lucien didn't come, if he was even coming, if he'd ever planned to. The room at the end of the hall was slightly larger than the others, a bed bolted to the floor, a small bathroom visible through an open door, a window looking out at forest and sky, and nothing else for miles. Beautiful, isolated, perfect. Your temporary accommodation, Thomas said, releasing her arm, until Dr. Morrison completes his evaluation. How long? Camilla asked. That depends on your progress. I'm not sick. That's for Dr. Morrison to determine. Thomas stepped back into the hallway. Someone will be by shortly with your intake paperwork and medications. I'm not taking medications. We can discuss that with the doctor. He closed the door. The lock engaged with a soft click. Camilla was alone with Grant for the first time since the car. He stood by the window looking out at the trees. Do you understand now? Understand what? That you never had a choice. That Lucien Moretti was always working for me. That every moment you spent feeling safe was an illusion I allowed you to have. Camilla's chest tightened. You're lying. Am I? Grant turned. Then where is he? Where's your rescuer? Your protector? He checked his watch. You said your panic word 15 minutes ago. If Moretti was really coming, he'd be here by now. The logic was a knife between her ribs. 15 minutes. More than enough time for extraction if Lucien had been listening. If he'd been real. He's coming, Camilla said, but her voice wavered. He's not, because he was never yours to begin with. He was mine, a tool I used to break you down enough to accept coming back. Grant moved closer. Did you really think a man like Lucien Moretti does charity work? That he helps random women out of kindness? He lost his wife 3 years ago to cancer. I know. I did my research too. Grant's smile was cruel. He's been alone since, isolated, obsessive about control, easy to manipulate if you know which buttons to push. You manipulated him? I offered him something he wanted, information on my real estate competitors, access to development deals, money. Grant shrugged. He's a businessman. Criminals always are. And I made him an offer he couldn't refuse. Help me recover my wife, and I'd make him the richest gangster in Chicago. The words built a prison around her heart. No, this couldn't be real. The clinic, the community center, Aria. The way Lucien looked at her in the kitchen yesterday morning promising he'd come for her. None of it could be lies. But the texts on Grant's phone had been real, detailed, coordinated, and Lucien wasn't here. I don't believe you, Camilla whispered. Then don't. Believe whatever fantasy helps you sleep at night. Grant moved to the door. Dr. Morrison will be by soon to start your evaluation. I've briefed him on your delusions. The paranoia. The belief that I've abused you when really you've been suffering from severe mental instability exacerbated by a traumatic childhood. I never told you about my childhood. I know, I invented one. Very tragic. Very explanatory. His hand rested on the door handle. By the time Dr. Morrison is done with his report, you'll be committed indefinitely. And even if by some miracle you convince someone to investigate your claims, the evidence will show exactly what I want it to show. Which is? A mentally ill woman who abandoned her devoted husband and fell under the influence of a known criminal, who suffered a psychotic break and had to be institutionalized for her own safety. Grant's smile was gentle. Terrible. Everyone will be very sympathetic, very understanding, very convinced that I'm the victim here. He opened the door, paused, turned back. The best part? Moretti gets paid regardless. Whether you're recovered by force or you come back voluntarily thinking you're playing spy, he gets his money either way. So really, everyone wins except you. The door closed. The lock engaged. Camilla stood in the center of the room, feeling the walls contract. This was the end. This was Grant winning. This was her, trapped in a facility where no one would believe her, where Lucien wasn't coming, where she'd spend however long it took for them to medicate her into compliance. Her hand moved to the watch. The surveillance device, real or fake, ally or enemy. It didn't matter anymore. She had to try. Camilla moved to the window, looking out at forest and sky, and spoke clearly. I'm at a facility called Lakeside Retreat, 40 minutes north of the city. Grant Holloway is having me committed under false pretenses. If anyone is listening, if any of this was real, I need help. Now. Silence answered. Just wind in the trees and the soft hum of the building's ventilation system. No rescue team, no extraction, no Lucien Moretti charging in to save her. Just her in a locked room and the slow realization that she'd been played by everyone. That trust was a weapon that left her bleeding. That the only person she could save was herself. Camilla looked around the room. Bed bolted down, bathroom door that didn't lock, window that didn't open. Security camera in the corner tracking her movement. She walked to the camera, stared directly into the lens. If you're watching this, Grant, she said quietly, know that I will find a way out. I survived 8 years of you. I'll survive this too. Then she went to the bathroom and threw up everything in her stomach until she was shaking and empty. Dr. Morrison arrived an hour later. 50s. Gray beard, expensive glasses, clipboard with forms that probably already had her diagnosis written in. Ms. Holloway, I'm Dr. Morrison. Your husband has asked me to conduct an evaluation. I don't consent. Your consent isn't required. Your husband has medical power of attorney during this crisis period. He sat in the room's single chair. Why don't you tell me what's been happening? You already know. Grant told you what to write. I'd like to hear your perspective. Would you? Or are you just going through the motions before you sign whatever paperwork commits me indefinitely? Dr. Morrison's expression didn't change. You seem very angry. I'm not angry. I'm trapped. Do you often feel trapped? I feel trapped when I'm literally locked in a room against my will. Your husband says you've been experiencing paranoid delusions, believing he's abusive when he's been nothing but supportive. My husband is a liar. Can you give me examples of this alleged lying? The interview continued, calm questions designed to make her sound unstable, leading queries that twisted her words. Every answer she gave was ammunition. She was angry, proof of instability. She was calm, proof of dissociation. She insisted Grant was abusive, paranoid delusions. She tried to explain rationally, manipulation of facts. There was no winning. The game was rigged before it started. After 40 minutes, Dr. Morrison stood. I'll need to conduct a few more sessions before finalizing my report, but preliminary assessment suggests significant psychiatric intervention is necessary. Of course it does. We'll start you on medications tomorrow, something to help with the anxiety and paranoid thoughts. I'm not taking anything. We can administer medications by injection if oral consumption is refused. His voice stayed professional, kind even. I'd prefer your cooperation, Ms. Holloway, but I will ensure you receive the treatment you need. He left. The lock engaged. Camilla sat on the bed, hands shaking. Medications by injection. Forced compliance. Chemical restraints until she stopped fighting and accepted whatever reality they decided to give her. This was how it ended. Not with dramatic confrontation, not with rescue or escape, just slow erosion, piece by piece, until the woman who'd walked into the rain 2 weeks ago no longer existed. She looked at the watch, the surveillance device that had recorded everything Grant said, every threat, every admission, evidence that meant nothing if no one was listening, if Lucian had never been real, if she was truly, completely alone. Camilla lay back on the bed, staring at the ceiling, feeling the weight of it all crushing down. She'd gambled everything on trusting a stranger, on believing that someone would actually help without ulterior motive, on hope. And hope had left her here, in a locked room, waiting for medications that would turn her into someone else, waiting for rescue that wasn't coming, waiting for... The window exploded inward. Glass shattered. Camilla rolled off the bed as something heavy crashed through, hitting the floor with a metallic thud. A canister. Smoke erupted, thick and choking, filling the room in seconds. Alarms shrieked. Red lights flashed. Through the smoke, a figure appeared at the window, rappelling down from the roof, black tactical gear, face covered. The figure swung through the broken window, boots crunching on glass, and crossed to Camilla in 3 strides. "Can you walk?" The voice was female, young, professional. "Yes, who?" "Save it, we're leaving. Now." The door burst open. Thomas and another orderly rushed in, then stopped short, seeing the smoke, the broken window, the armed woman pulling Camilla to her feet. "Security!" Thomas shouted into a radio. "3rd floor. We have a breach." The woman moved fast. 2 steps, a spinning kick that put Thomas on the ground, gasping. The other orderly tried to grab her. She drove an elbow into his solar plexus, dropped him beside Thomas. "Window," she ordered Camilla. "Climb!" "I can't." "You can. Move." Camilla stumbled through smoke to the broken window, looked down. 3 stories, rope hanging from the roof, forest below. Heights had never been her thing. "Clip in." The woman handed her a harness. "I'll rappel with you. Just don't let go." Sirens wailed. Footsteps pounded through hallways. Shouts echoed. Camilla fumbled with the harness, hands shaking, lungs burning from smoke. The woman helped, movements efficient, then clipped her own harness to the same rope. "On 3, she said. 1, 2. They went out the window. Free fall for a stomach-dropping second before the rope caught. Then controlled descent, the woman's body pressed against Camilla's back, her voice steady in her ear. "Lean back. Let the harness take your weight. Don't look down." Camilla looked down anyway. Forest rushing up. Security guards pouring out of the building below. Flashlights cutting through darkness. They hit the ground hard. Camilla's knees buckled, but the woman caught her, already unclipping both harnesses. "Run. That way." She pointed toward the tree line. Camilla ran. Branches whipped her face. Roots tried to trip her. Behind them, shouting intensified. Flashlight beams swept through the forest. The woman grabbed Camilla's hand, pulling her faster than seemed possible through undergrowth and darkness. They burst through trees into a small clearing where a black SUV waited, engine running. The driver's door opened. Lucienne stepped out. Camilla stopped dead. "You!" "Get in the car." "You betrayed me. Grant showed me texts. You've been working for him." "Fabricated, all of it. Get in the car, Camilla. We can discuss my alleged treachery after you're not being hunted by facility security." Behind them, voices grew closer. Dogs barked. The woman pushed Camilla toward the SUV. "Boss said get her out." "I'm getting her out. Argue later." Camilla's mind spun. Trust him or run? Believe the text Grant showed her, or believe the man who just sent armed extraction to break her out of a psychiatric facility? The evidence warred inside her head. Then she remembered. The surveillance device. Lucien had given it to her. If he'd been working for Grant, why give her something that recorded all of Grant's threats? Unless that was part of the manipulation too. Unless... Camilla. Lucien's voice cut through her spiral. I know you don't trust me. You have every reason not to. But right now, this second, you need to choose. Come with me, or let Grant's people drag you back to that room. Dogs barked louder. Flashlights appeared through the trees. Camilla climbed into the SUV. The woman got in back with her. Lucien hit the gas before the doors fully closed. They rocketed down a dirt road, headlights off, navigating by memory or GPS or sheer will. Behind them, the facility's lights blazed. More vehicles poured out, giving chase. Lucien took a turn at speed that made the SUV tilt dangerously. Camilla grabbed the door handle, heart in her throat. Who is she? Camilla demanded, gesturing at the woman in tactical gear. Elena. Best extraction specialist I have. Lucien's eyes stayed on the road. She's been tracking you since you left my car this morning. Grant showed me texts between you and him, planning all of this. I'm sure he did. They'd be very convincing. Also completely fake. How do I know that? Because if I was working for Grant, you'd still be in that room waiting for your first dose of antipsychotics. Lucien took another turn, this one onto pavement. I'd have let you walk into his trap and collected my payment. I wouldn't have sent Elena. Wouldn't have blown a 3-month operation. Wouldn't be currently fleeing from facility security with you in my car. The logic tracked, but logic and lies looked the same in the right light. The surveillance device, Camilla said. Did it record everything? Every word, every threat, every admission of false commitment. Lucien glanced at her in the rearview mirror. Grant Holloway just handed us everything we need to destroy him. He just doesn't know it yet. He said you were paid $5 million to break me down and send me back to him. He lied. Prove it. Lucien's jaw tightened. When we're safe. When you're not in immediate danger. When I can show you bank records and communications and everything else that proves I've been working against Grant since long before I met you. Why should I believe you? Because 48 hours ago I promised I'd come for you, and here I am. The SUV merged onto a highway. Behind them, the facility's pursuit vehicles fell back, unable to match their speed or justify a high-speed chase on public roads. They'd escaped, for now. Camilla's whole body shook. Adrenaline crash mixing with shock, mixing with the terrible uncertainty of not knowing who to believe. Where are we going? She asked. Somewhere Grant will never find you. Somewhere I can show you proof. Lucien's eyes met hers in the mirror. And then you can decide if you want my help or if you want to disappear on your own. Your choice. But first, we need to get you somewhere safe. Elena pulled out a first aid kit, checking Camilla for injuries. You're bleeding. Camilla looked down. Glass cuts on her arms from the window. She hadn't even felt them. I'm fine. You're in shock. Let me work. Elena cleaned the cuts with professional efficiency while Camilla tried to process the last 2 hours. The facility. Dr. Morrison. Grant's revelations. The explosion. The escape. Lucien rescuing her exactly when she'd given up hope. Real or manipulation. Savior or player. She couldn't tell anymore. The clinic, Camilla said suddenly. Grant burned it. Said he'd keep burning everything you care about until I came back. I know. We're handling it. How? Federal investigation opened this morning. Anonymous tip about Grant's bribery network. His financial crimes. Everything we've been building toward for 3 months. Lucien's voice hardened. By the time he realizes what hit him, his entire empire will be under scrutiny. He'll know it was you. I'm counting on it. They drove for another hour. City giving way to suburbs, giving way to rural nothing. Finally, Lucien pulled onto a private road even more isolated than the one leading to his estate. The safe house was small, nondescript. A cabin in the woods that looked abandoned from the outside but revealed modern security once Lucien entered the access code. Inside was clean, furnished, stocked with supplies like he'd been preparing for this exact scenario. Of course he had. You'll stay here tonight, Lucien said. Elena will remain as security. I need to return to the city and make sure Grant's people haven't tracked us. You're leaving? I'm making sure you stay hidden. There's a difference. He moved to a safe in the corner, entering a combination and pulling out a laptop. Everything you need to see is on here: bank records, communications, proof that I've been working to destroy Grant, not help him. He set the laptop on the table. Take your time. Review everything. When I come back tomorrow, you can tell me if you want my continued help or if you want me to arrange your disappearance somewhere Grant will never find you. Camilla stared at the laptop, at Lucian, at Elena standing professional and silent by the door. Why? Camilla asked. Why risk everything for me? Lucian was quiet for a long moment. Because 3 years ago I watched my wife die while I stood there powerless. I've spent every day since then trying to find something that makes that helplessness mean something. He met her eyes. Helping you do what I couldn't do for her. That means something. The raw honesty in his voice cracked something in her chest. I'm not her, Camilla said. I know. But maybe saving you helps me live with losing her. Is that selfish? Probably. But it's true. He moved toward the door, stopped, turned back. Grant showed you texts because he knew that's what would break you. Isolation. Making you believe you're alone, that everyone you trusted is a lie. Lucian's voice softened. Don't let him win by doing his work for him. Look at the evidence. Decide for yourself. Then he was gone. Door closing behind him, engine starting outside. Camilla stood in the cabin with a laptop full of potential truth and a woman in tactical gear watching her with neutral eyes. You should rest, Elena said. It's been a difficult day. Difficult. The understatement of the year. Camilla sat at the table, opened the laptop, started reading, bank records showing Lucien's accounts. No $5 million payment from Grant. Instead, regular withdrawals to community organizations. The clinic. The food bank. After-school programs. Communications between Lucien and his team. Planning Grant's takedown. Gathering evidence. Building a case. Nothing about sending Camilla back, nothing about coordination with Grant, nothing that matched what Grant had shown her in the car. Hours passed. Camilla read everything. Cross-referenced dates. Checked metadata. Either Lucien was the most elaborate liar she'd ever met, or Grant had fabricated the text to break her exactly when she was most vulnerable. Dawn light crept through the cabin windows. Elena had made coffee at some point. The smell pulled Camilla from the laptop screen. Conclusion? Elena asked, handing her a mug. Either Lucien's telling the truth, or he spent 3 months building an elaborate lie just to convince me. Which seems more likely? Camilla thought about it. About Aria, about the clinic work, about the way Lucien looked at her in the kitchen promising he'd come for her, about him actually coming. He's telling the truth, she said quietly. Good, because the alternative would have made my job very complicated. Despite everything, Camilla almost smiled. What now? She asked. Now you rest. Boss will be back this afternoon with next steps. Elena settled into a chair by the window, rifle across her lap. And I make sure no one finds you before then. Camilla should have slept, should have rested, should have processed the trauma of the last 12 hours. Instead, she kept reading, kept digging through Lucien's files, kept finding evidence that Grant Holloway had built his empire on fraud, bribery, and systematic destruction of anyone who challenged him. And suddenly, she understood. This wasn't just about her. It had never been just about her. She was the catalyst, the proof, the human evidence that Grant Holloway was exactly as monstrous in private as he was charming in public. But the real fight was bigger. The community center. The families displaced. The people Grant had crushed building his towers of glass and steel. Camilla was one person. They were hundreds. And if her testimony could bring Grant down, could expose everything he'd done, could make sure he faced actual consequences for once in his privileged life, then maybe nearly dying was worth it. Maybe trusting Lucien despite the fear was worth it. Maybe becoming something harder than the woman who'd walked into that penthouse 8 years ago was worth it. She looked up from the laptop to find Elena watching her. You're planning something, Elena said. I'm planning to make sure Grant Holloway regrets ever meeting me. Good. Elena's smile was sharp. Boss will be pleased. Yet, Lucien returned at 2 p.m., looking like he hadn't slept either. Camilla met him at the door. I read everything. And? You weren't lying. Grant was. Something in Lucien's expression eased. I'm glad you believe me. I believe the evidence. There's a difference. Fair enough. They sat at the table. Elena remained on watch by the window. What happens now? Camilla asked. Now we finish what we started. I have federal prosecutors ready to move. Grant's financial crimes, his bribery network, everything. Lucian pulled up files on his phone. Your surveillance recording is the final piece. His admission of false commitment, his threats. All admissible. When? 48 hours, maybe less. The moment we file, Grant gets arrested, his assets frozen, his empire dismantled. He'll fight. Of course. He has the best lawyers money can buy, but he doesn't have the truth on his side. Lucian's eyes hardened. And for once, that's going to matter. Camilla processed this. 2 days. 2 days until Grant faced consequences. 2 days until she could finally truly be free. What about me? She asked. Do I testify? Only if you want to. The surveillance gives us most of what we need. You've been through enough. I want to testify. Camilla, I want to look him in the eye in open court and tell everyone exactly what he is, what he did, how many years I lost being afraid of him. Her hands clenched. I want the world to know. Lucien studied her. It'll be brutal. His lawyers will attack your credibility, your mental state, every choice you've ever made. Let them. I'll survive. I've survived worse. Have you? His voice was gentle. Because what you're describing is choosing to relive trauma publicly, choosing to be dissected by strangers. That's not survival, that's sacrifice. Then I'm choosing sacrifice. For the families he displaced, for the people he destroyed, for the next woman who might fall for his act. Silence stretched between them. Finally, Lucien nodded. Okay, but the moment it becomes too much, the moment you need to stop, you tell me. Promise. I promise. He stood. I need to return to the city. Make final arrangements. You'll stay here with Elena until we're ready to move. Lucien, he turned. Thank you for coming, for being real, for, her voice cracked, for not being another lie. His expression softened. He crossed back to her, cupping her face with both hands the way he had in his kitchen a lifetime ago. You're stronger than you know, he said quietly. Stronger than Grant. Stronger than me. Don't ever forget that. Then he kissed her forehead and left before she could respond. The door closed. The lock engaged. Camilla sat in the cabin feeling the weight of the next 48 hours pressing down. 2 days until Grant's arrest. 2 days until freedom. 2 days to prepare for war. She looked at Elena. Teach me something. Like what? Like how to fight, how to protect myself. How to make sure I never feel helpless again. Elena's smile was fierce. Now you're talking. They spent the afternoon in the clearing outside, Elena teaching basic self-defense, how to break a hold, where to strike for maximum impact, how to use an attacker's momentum against them. Camilla was clumsy at first, slow, but 8 years of nursing had given her strength she'd forgotten she had. Muscle memory from lifting patients, stamina from 12-hour shifts. She fell, got up, fell again, got up again. By sunset, her entire body ached. By moonrise, she could execute a basic defensive sequence without thinking. Better, Elena said. You'll never be a fighter, but you might survive one long enough to run. I'll take it. They went inside. Elena heated canned soup while Camilla showered, washing away sweat and blood and the last remnants of fear. She stood under the spray feeling different, harder, sharper. The woman who'd walked into Velvet Hour 2 weeks ago had been broken, desperate, running blind into the storm. The woman standing here now knew exactly where she was running and why. Toward justice, toward freedom, toward a version of herself Grant had tried to destroy but couldn't quite kill. Camilla dressed in clean clothes Elena had provided, ate soup that tasted like victory, slept on a narrow bed with a woman armed to the teeth guarding the door, and dreamed of courtrooms and testimony and watching Grant Holloway's empire burn to ash. 48 hours became 36, became 24. Lucien called every few hours with updates. Federal prosecutors were ready. The evidence was airtight. Grant's arrest warrant had been signed. They were just waiting for the right moment. Maximum impact, minimum escape vectors. Camilla spent the time preparing, reviewing her statement, practicing testimony with Elena playing hostile lawyer, getting comfortable with the story she'd spent 8 years burying. The hours crawled and raced simultaneously. Then Lucien's final call came. Tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. Federal agents hit Grant's penthouse simultaneously with his office. Full media coverage, public arrest. I want to be there, Camilla said. Camilla, I want to watch him get dragged out in handcuffs. I've earned that. Silence on the other end, then, okay, but you stay in the car with Elena, watching from a distance. Deal. I'll pick you up at 4. We need to be in position before his security wakes up. I'll be ready. She ended the call, looked at Elena. How do you feel? Elena asked. Terrified, exhilarated, ready. Good combination, keeps you sharp. They tried to sleep, failed, spent the pre-dawn hours drinking coffee and checking equipment and waiting for Lucien's headlights in the driveway. He arrived at 3:30, early, looking like he'd spent the night preparing for war. Maybe he had. Camilla climbed into the SUV. Elena got in back. They drove toward Chicago through darkness that slowly gave way to pre-dawn gray. The city rose before them, glittering, indifferent, full of people who had no idea that today Grant Holloway's empire would collapse. They parked 2 blocks from Grant's building, close enough to see, far enough to stay invisible. 5:45. 15 minutes. Camilla's heart hammered against her ribs. Her palms sweated. Every nerve ending felt electric. Second thoughts? Lucien asked quietly. No, just first time watching my abuser get arrested thoughts. That's fair. 5:50. 10 minutes. Federal vehicles moved into position. Unmarked cars, SUVs full of agents. A media van tipped off, ready to capture everything. This was it. The moment 8 years of suffering became public vindication. 5:55, 5 minutes. Camilla could barely breathe. Then, at exactly 6 a.m., the building's front doors burst open. Not federal agents entering, Grant Holloway exiting, with a dozen bodyguards, moving fast toward a waiting helicopter on the roof. No, Camilla breathed. No, no, no. Lucien was already on his phone. He's running, north side, roof access. Move now! Federal agents poured out of vehicles, racing toward the building, but Grant's team moved faster, trained for exactly this scenario. The helicopter's rotors started spinning. He's escaping, Camilla said. He knew. Someone tipped him off. The helicopter lifted, 10 feet, 20, climbing fast toward open sky. Federal agents on the roof shouted into radios, called for air support. But Chicago airspace took time to lock down, time Grant would use to disappear. Camilla watched the helicopter rise, watched Grant escape justice again, watched 8 years of suffering remain unpunished while he flew away into the dawn, and something inside her finally, completely broke. Not broke down, broke open. Follow him, she said. Lucien looked at her. What? Follow him. Track him. Find where he lands. I don't care if it's Canada or Mexico or the middle of the goddamn ocean. Camilla's voice turned to steel. He doesn't get to run. Not this time. Not ever again. Lucien's expression shifted. Understanding. Approval. Something almost like pride. Okay, he said simply. Then we hunt. He started the engine, made calls while driving, contacts, resources, people who tracked helicopters for a living. Within 10 minutes, they had Grant's flight path, heading northwest, toward a private airfield outside the city. Within 20, they were in pursuit. Federal agents coordinated behind them, but Lucien drove like he was possessed, pushing the SUV to speeds that made Camilla's teeth rattle. Elena checked weapons in the back seat. What's the play, boss? We intercept before he reaches the airfield, box him in, hand him to the feds, and if he has more security waiting, then we improvise. The helicopter stayed ahead of them, a dark dot against lightening sky. But they were gaining. The airfield was 40 minutes away. The helicopter would get there in 15, not enough time to intercept. Unless, there, Lucien, and said, pointing. The helicopter was descending, early, landing in an empty field miles from its destination. Engine trouble? Elena suggested. Or someone sabotaged his flight plan. Lucien's smile was sharp. I may have friends in air traffic control. They reached the field as the helicopter touched down. Grant and his guards poured out, weapons drawn, forming a perimeter. Lucien stopped the SUV 300 yards away, too far for effective gunfire. Close enough to watch. Federal vehicles arrived seconds later, boxing Grant in from all sides. Agents emerged with weapons and bullhorns and arrest warrants. Grant stood in the center of it all, surrounded, trapped, finally out of options. Camilla watched through binoculars as federal agents approached, as Grant's bodyguards lowered their weapons, as the man who'd controlled her life for 8 years was told to kneel and put his hands behind his head. He refused. Of course he refused. 2 agents moved forward, grabbed his arms, forced him down. Grant fought, shouted, struggled like his dignity depended on resistance. They cuffed him anyway. Camilla watched as Grant Holloway, billionaire developer, Chicago elite, master manipulator, was dragged to his feet and walked toward a federal vehicle with his hands bound behind his back. He looked up as he passed near their SUV, looked directly at where Camilla sat watching. Their eyes met across the distance. For the first time in 8 years, there was no smile, no charm, no carefully crafted mask, just rage, pure, impotent fury that he'd been beaten. By her, by Lucien, by the truth he'd spent years burying. Camilla held his gaze until the agents shoved him into the vehicle. The door slammed. The car pulled away. Federal agents dispersed to secure the scene, and just like that, it was over. Grant Holloway was in custody. His empire was crumbling. His freedom was gone. Camilla sat back in her seat, hands shaking, breath coming in gasps that might have been sobs or laughter, or both. "You okay?" Lucien asked quietly. "I don't know. That's fair." They sat in silence watching the sun finish rising. Federal agents processed the scene. The helicopter sat abandoned. Justice had been served. So why did Camilla feel so empty? "What happens now?" she asked. "Now we go back to the city. You give your official statement. The prosecutors build their case. Grant goes to trial. How long? Months, maybe a year. Federal cases move slow. And me? What do I do for a year while he fights this from a cell?" Lucien turned to face her. "You live, you rebuild. You remember who you were before Grant Holloway tried to destroy it." "I don't know who that is anymore." "Then you figure it out. One day at a time." Camilla looked at him. At this dangerous man who'd risked everything to help her, who'd kept his promises when she'd given up hope, who'd taught her that trust could be something other than a weapon. "Thank you," she said quietly. "You already thanked me." "I'm saying it again." His hand found hers, squeezed once. "You're welcome." They drove back to Chicago as morning traffic began to fill the highways. News reports already breaking the story. Grant Holloway arrested, federal charges, empire in shambles. The city woke up to a different world than the one it went to sleep in. And somewhere in that shifting reality, Camilla began to believe she might actually survive this, might actually be free, might actually get to decide who she became next. The thought was terrifying. The thought was exhilarating. The thought was hers. And for the first time in 8 years, that was enough. The federal building smelled like industrial cleaner and stale coffee. Camilla sat in a windowless room with her lawyer, a woman named Patricia Chen, who specialized in domestic abuse cases and had kind eyes that had seen too much. "You don't have to do this today," Patricia said for the 3rd time. "We can postpone. Give you more time to prepare." "I've had 8 years to prepare." Camilla's hands rested flat on the table, steady now. "I'm ready. The deposition would be recorded, transcribed, used to build the case against Grant. Every detail she'd spent years burying would become public record." Patricia slid a box of tissues across the table. Camilla ignored them. She wouldn't cry today. Crying was what the old Camilla did. The woman who apologized for existing. The woman who made herself smaller so Grant could feel bigger. That woman was gone. The prosecutor entered, a man in his 40s named David Santos, with a reputation for destroying white-collar criminals. He'd taken one look at the surveillance recording and called it the most damning evidence he'd seen in 20 years. "Ms. Vale," he said, settling into his chair. "Thank you for doing this." "You're welcome. I know this won't be easy. If you need breaks, just say so." "I won't need breaks." Santos studied her for a moment, then nodded. Okay, let's begin. The questions started simple. Her name, her history with Grant, when they met, when they married. Then they got harder. Describe the control, the isolation, the systematic destruction of her identity, the threats disguised as concern, the times she'd tried to leave and been convinced she was overreacting, being dramatic, failing to appreciate how good she had it. Camilla answered each question with the precision she'd learned during nursing school. Clinical, factual. Emotions stripped away until only truth remained. Santos listened, took notes, asked follow-ups that cut deeper. Did Mr. Holloway ever physically harm you? Not in ways that left marks. He was too smart for that. Explain. He'd grab my arm hard enough to bruise, then ice it immediately so the bruising wouldn't develop. He'd corner me against walls when he was angry, controlling space without technically touching me. He'd stand over me while I slept and I'd wake up to find him just watching, reminding me that he could do anything he wanted and I couldn't stop him. Santos's jaw tightened. Did you ever report this? To who? The police he played golf with? The lawyers on his payroll? The friends who saw him as a pillar of the community? Camilla met his eyes. I tried once, called a domestic violence hotline. They told me to document everything, gather evidence, make a safety plan. I started documenting. Grant found my notes, destroyed them, then spent 3 hours explaining why what he did wasn't abuse, it was love. And I was ungrateful for not recognizing the difference. How did that make you feel? Like I was going insane, like maybe he was right, like maybe I was the problem. The deposition lasted 4 hours. By the end, Camilla's throat was raw from talking, her hands ached from clenching, and Santos looked like he wanted to put Grant away for life. This is good, he said quietly. Really good. Combined with the surveillance recording and the financial evidence, we have enough to ensure he never sees freedom again. How long until trial? 8 months. Maybe a year. His lawyers will delay as much as possible. And in the meantime? He stays in federal custody. No bail. Too much flight risk after the helicopter stunt. Santos gathered his files. You should be proud, Ms. Vale. What you did today, that takes courage most people never find. Camilla didn't feel courageous. She felt hollowed out, scraped clean, like she'd performed surgery on her own life and was now waiting to see if the patient would survive. Patricia walked her out into the hallway where Lucian waited, leaning against the wall with his phone in hand. He looked up as they approached, reading something in Camilla's expression. How'd it go? He asked. It's done. Good. Let's get you out of here. They walked to his car in silence. Chicago autumn had turned cold, wind cutting between buildings like knives. Camilla pulled her jacket tighter and tried to remember what normal felt like. The car was warm. Lucien turned the heat up without asking. Where to? He said. I don't know. I don't have anywhere. You have the estate. Maria's been asking about you. Aria, too. The mention of Aria made Camilla's chest tight. Does she know what happened? She knows you had to help with something important. She doesn't know details. Lucien pulled into traffic. She misses you, though. Keeps asking when you're coming back. I'm not her mother. No. But you're someone she trusts. Someone who sees her instead of the mobster's daughter everyone else sees. He glanced at Camilla. That matters. They drove north toward the lake, toward the estate, toward something that felt dangerously close to home. Camilla watched the city scroll past, thinking about the testimony she'd just given, the details she'd shared, the truth she'd excavated from years of carefully maintained lies. Do you think it'll be enough? She asked. The evidence? Yes. Santos is good. He'll make sure Grant pays for everything. That's not what I meant. Lucien was quiet for a moment. You're asking if destroying Grant will make you feel whole again. Yes. No, it won't. He merged onto Lakeshore Drive. Revenge doesn't heal trauma. It just makes the people who hurt you face consequences. The healing part, that's separate work. Sounds like you know from experience. I do. They didn't talk about it further. Some wounds were too personal to share in moving cars with the city watching through windows. The estate appeared through the trees, security gates, cameras, Maria standing on the front steps like she'd been waiting. Camilla climbed out of the car, and was immediately wrapped in a hug that smelled like flour and cinnamon and safety. "You're too thin," Maria said, pulling back to examine her. "Come, I'll feed you." "I'm not hungry." "You'll eat anyway." Some arguments weren't worth having. Inside, the house felt different, warmer somehow, like it had rearranged itself during her absence to be less fortress and more home. Or maybe Camilla was the one who'd changed. Arya appeared at the top of the stairs, hesitating like she wasn't sure if she was allowed to be excited. "You're back," the little girl said. "I'm back." "For how long?" Camilla looked at Lucien. He nodded slightly. "Your choice." "I don't know yet," Camilla said honestly. "Is that okay?" Arya descended the stairs slowly, stopping a few feet away. "Papa said you were helping people, that you were being brave." "I was trying to be." "Did it work?" "I think so, yeah." The girl moved closer, wrapped small arms around Camilla's waist, and held on like she'd been waiting weeks to do this. "I'm glad you're back," Arya whispered. "I missed you." Something in Camilla's chest cracked open. Not breaking. Opening. Making space for something she'd thought she'd lost the right to feel. Love without ownership. Connection without control. Family by choice instead of obligation. She hugged Arya back, resting her cheek on the girl's dark hair, and let herself feel it. 3 weeks passed in strange suspension. Camilla existed in the estate like a ghost finding its way back to solid form. Some days were good, working at the rebuilt clinic, having dinner with Lucien and Arya, sleeping without nightmares. Some days were terrible. Panic attacks in grocery stores, hypervigilance that made her jump at every sound, moments where she forgot Grant was in custody and believed he was still hunting her. Therapy helped. Patricia had recommended a trauma specialist named Dr. Okafor, who didn't push, didn't judge, just created space for Camilla to process 8 years of systematic abuse. "Healing isn't linear," Dr. Okafor said during their 5th session. "Some days you'll feel strong. Some days you'll feel like you're back at square one. Both are normal. I want to feel strong all the time. That's not realistic. And honestly, it's not the goal." "Then what is?" "The goal is learning to feel everything, strong, weak, angry, scared, and knowing you'll survive it anyway. That's resilience, not the absence of fear, the ability to feel it and keep moving." The words settled into Camilla's bones like truth. She started running. Just a mile at first, then 2, then 5. Pushing her body until her lungs burned and her legs screamed and her mind finally quieted. She started cooking, helping Maria in the kitchen, learning recipes she'd never had time for during her marriage, finding comfort in the precision of measurements and the alchemy of heat transforming ingredients. She started existing without constantly checking over her shoulder. Most days. One evening, 6 weeks after Grant's arrest, Lucien found her on the back terrace watching the lake turn silver under moonlight. "Can't sleep?" he asked. "Don't want to. Every time I close my eyes, I'm back in that facility." He sat beside her, close but not touching, giving her space to be broken without trying to fix it. "Santos called today?" Lucien said. "Grant's lawyers are pushing for a plea deal." Camilla's stomach dropped. "What kind of deal?" "Reduced sentence, 15 years instead of life. They're arguing he's a first-time offender, pillar of the community, deserves leniency." "That's bullshit." "I know." Santos is rejecting it. He wants to take this to trial, let a jury decide. "When?" 4 months. February. 4 more months of waiting. 4 more months of Grant's lawyers spinning narratives. 4 more months of her life in suspension while the justice system ground slowly forward. "I hate this," Camilla said quietly. "I hate that he still has power. That his lawyers can negotiate his freedom like it's a business transaction. That the system treats him like he deserves consideration when he gave me none." "I know. Do you? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like rich men always find ways to escape consequences. Even when they're caught. Even when there's evidence. They just buy better lawyers and wait for the world to get bored and move on." Lucien was quiet for a long moment. "You're right. The system is designed to protect people like Grant. That's why I don't rely on it." "What does that mean?" "It means Santos will do his job. The prosecutors will do theirs. And if Grant somehow slips through the cracks, If his lawyers find a loophole or a sympathetic judge or a technicality that sets him free, he won't walk away. The implication hung in the air between them. You'd kill him, Camilla said. I'd make sure he never hurt anyone again, however that needs to happen. That makes you no better than him. Maybe, but it would make you safe, permanently. Camilla turned to look at him. This man who'd saved her, who'd protected her, who was calmly discussing murder as a backup plan if the justice system failed. I don't want you to become a monster for me, she said. I was a monster long before I met you. The difference is now I have a reason that matters. What reason? You. The word sat between them, heavy with everything they hadn't said. Weeks of living in the same house, weeks of careful distance, weeks of Camilla rebuilding herself while Lucien watched and waited and gave her space to figure out who she was when she wasn't running or hiding or surviving. I don't know what I am to you, Camilla said quietly. Responsibility, project, something else? You're someone who walked into a storm rather than accept one more humiliation. Someone who trusted me when you had no reason to. Someone who's rebuilding herself piece by piece and letting me watch. Lucien's eyes held hers. You're not a project, Camilla. You're a person I'd burn the world down to protect. That's not healthy. Probably not, but it's true. She should have been terrified, should have recognized the possessiveness, should have seen the parallels to Grant's obsession. But there was a difference. Grant demanded she be smaller. Lucien watched her become larger. Grant controlled. Lucien protected. Grant took. Lucien gave. The difference mattered. I'm not ready, Camilla said. For whatever this is. For anything beyond what we already have. I know. But maybe someday. I'll be here when you are. They sat in silence, watching moonlight dance across water, existing beside each other without demands or expectations. It was the safest Camilla had felt in years. The trial began on a Tuesday in February. Chicago winter had arrived with a vengeance. Snow piling in the streets, wind cutting through even the warmest coat. The city hunched against cold that felt personal. Camilla wore a navy suit Patricia had helped her choose. Professional, serious. Nothing Grant could use to paint her as unstable or attention-seeking. The courthouse steps were packed. Media, protesters, people who'd been displaced by Grant's developments holding signs demanding justice. Santos met her at the entrance. Ready? As I'll ever be. Inside, the courtroom was smaller than she'd expected. Wood paneling, high ceilings, a judge who looked tired before the day even started. And there, at the defense table, was Grant. He'd lost weight. The orange jumpsuit hung wrong on his frame. His hair, usually perfect, looked dull and unwashed. Prison had aged him. Good. Their eyes met across the courtroom. Grant smiled. That same shark smile he'd used at his birthday party a lifetime ago. Camilla didn't look away, didn't flinch, just held his gaze until he was the one who broke first. Small victories. The trial lasted 3 weeks. Santos built his case methodically. Financial crimes first, fraud, bribery, illegal evictions. Then the evidence of Camilla's false commitment, the surveillance recording played in open court, Grant's voice echoing through the room admitting everything. The defense tried to discredit her, called her mentally unstable, suggested she'd manipulated Grant, not the other way around, painted her as a gold digger who'd turned vindictive when the money stopped flowing. Patricia objected to everything. Santos backed her up. The judge sustained most of it. When it was Camilla's turn to testify, she walked to the stand feeling every eye in the courtroom on her. Grant's lawyer, a man named Thornton with silver hair and shark eyes, approached like a predator circling wounded prey. Miss Vale, he began, voice dripping sympathy. You've painted quite a picture of my client as a monster, but isn't it true you willingly married him, stayed with him for 8 years, accepted his money, his home, his lifestyle? Yes. So you weren't a prisoner. You were a willing participant in a marriage that simply didn't work out. No. No? I was a prisoner, just one with nicer walls. Camilla met his eyes. Your client isolated me from friends, monitored my phone calls, controlled my money, made me believe I was worthless without him. That's not a marriage that didn't work out. That's captivity disguised as love. Thornton's expression didn't change. Yet you never reported this alleged abuse to authorities. Because your client is friends with half the police force and owns the other half. Who would I report him to? If things were so terrible, why not simply leave? I tried. Multiple times. Each time he'd convince me I was overreacting, that I was being dramatic, that I was the problem, not him. Camilla's voice stayed steady. Abusers are very good at making you believe you're crazy for recognizing abuse. Objection, Thornton said. The witness is not qualified to diagnose abuse. Sustained, the judge said. Ms. Vale, please stick to facts rather than conclusions. Camilla nodded. The fact is, I left the night of Grant's birthday party. The fact is, he immediately filed a missing persons report painting me as mentally unstable. The fact is, he hired mercenaries to kidnap me. The fact is, he had me committed to a psychiatric facility under false pretenses. The fact is, every single one of those actions was designed to force me back under his control. The courtroom was silent. Thornton tried different angles, suggested she'd been having an affair with Lucian, implied she'd orchestrated the whole thing for money, questioned her timeline, her memory, her motives. Camilla answered each accusation with the truth, simple, clear, unshakable. When Santos re-examined, he asked just one question. Ms. Vale, do you believe Grant Holloway is guilty of the crimes he's been charged with? Yes. Why? Because I lived them. Every threat, every manipulation, every moment of the last 8 years where he made me feel like I was nothing. She looked at Grant. He's guilty. And he knows it. Grant's expression stayed neutral, but his hands clenched on the table. The jury deliberated for 2 days. When they returned, the forewoman read the verdict with a steady voice. Guilty, on all counts. The courtroom erupted. Grant's lawyers immediately filed for appeal. The judge set sentencing for 3 weeks out. Santos shook Camilla's hand. We did it. You did it, Camilla said. I just told the truth. That's all we needed. Outside, protesters cheered. Media swarmed. Camilla pushed through them toward Lucian's waiting car. He held the door open, blocking the cameras with his body. Congratulations, he said quietly. It's not over. Sentencing still. It's over. Grant's going to prison. Everything else is just paperwork. Camilla climbed into the car. Elena drove, navigating through the crowd with professional efficiency. How do you feel? Lucian asked. Empty. Like I spent so much energy preparing for this moment that now it's happened, I don't know what to do with myself. You feel whatever you need to feel. There's no wrong answer. They drove to the estate. Maria had dinner waiting. Arya wanted to hear everything. Camilla ate, answered questions, went through the motions of celebrating, but inside she felt nothing. Grant was convicted. Justice had been served. Everything she'd fought for had happened. So why did victory feel so hollow? Well, sentencing came 3 weeks later. The judge handed down 45 years. Federal prison. No parole eligibility for 20 years. Grant Holloway would be 82 before he tasted freedom again, if he lived that long. Camilla watched from the gallery as guards led him away. He looked back once, finding her in the crowd. This time, his expression held no charm. No manipulation, just raw hatred for the woman who'd destroyed him. She held his gaze until he disappeared through the door. Then she walked out of the courthouse for the last time. No media, no protesters, just her and Patricia and Lucian waiting by the car. It's done, Patricia said. Truly done. You never have to see him again. What happens to his assets? Seized by the government, liquidated to pay restitution to the families he displaced. You're entitled to half the marital assets, but given the circumstances, I don't want his money. Camilla, I don't want anything that came from him. Give it to the families, the community centers, people who actually need it. She looked at Patricia. I just want to be done. Patricia nodded slowly. I'll make the arrangements. They drove back to the estate. Camilla went straight to her room, closed the door, and finally let herself feel it. Not triumph, not relief, just exhaustion. Bone-deep weariness from 8 years of survival, followed by months of fighting for justice. She'd won. Grant was in prison. She was free. But freedom felt like standing on a cliff edge with no map for what came next. A soft knock at the door. Arya's voice. Camilla, can I come in? Yeah. The little girl entered, climbing onto the bed beside her. Papa says you're sad. A little. Why? The bad man is gone. You won. I know, but winning doesn't make the last 8 years disappear. It just means they're finally over. Arya processed this with the seriousness of 8-year-olds who understood more than adults gave them credit for. My mom died, she said quietly. Even though I knew she wasn't coming back, I still felt sad. Papa said that's okay. That being sad doesn't mean you didn't win. It just means you lost something that mattered. Camilla's throat tightened. What did you lose? Time. All the time I could have had with her. Arya leaned against Camilla's shoulder. What did you lose? 8 years. A version of myself I'll never get back. The person I could have been if I'd never met Grant. That's sad. Yeah, it is. They sat in silence for a while. Then Arya said, But you can still be someone new. That's what Papa says I get to do. Be someone new who remembers my mom, but isn't just the girl whose mom died. The wisdom of children, simple, true, devastating. You're pretty smart, Camilla said. I know, Arya grinned. Will you stay, now that the bad man is gone? Will you keep living here? I don't know yet. I hope you do. I like having you here. It feels less lonely. The honesty cracked something in Camilla's chest. This little girl who'd lost her mother and was now asking, politely, hopefully, if Camilla might stay and help fill the space that loss had left behind. Not as a replacement, as a person who mattered. I'll think about it, Camilla said. Okay. Arya hugged her quickly, then slid off the bed. Dinner soon. Maria made your favorite. She left, closing the door gently. Camilla sat alone with the question. What now? Grant was in prison. The trial was over. She had no job, no home of her own, no clear purpose beyond surviving. She could leave. Start fresh somewhere Grant's name didn't follow her. Build a life completely separate from Chicago and Lucien and everything that had happened. Or she could stay. Keep working at the clinic. Keep having dinners with Arya. Keep existing beside Lucien and seeing where it led. Both terrified her. Both felt possible. The choice, for the first time in 8 years, was entirely hers. Spring came slowly to Chicago. Camilla spent the winter months rebuilding. Not just the clinic, which had been renovated with Lucien's money and now served twice as many patients, but herself. She got her nursing license fully reinstated, started working regular shifts, remembered what it felt like to help people who actually appreciated it rather than resented needing her. She found an apartment, small, cheap, her own space where she could exist without owing anyone anything. She decorated it carefully, not like the penthouse, not like the estate, like herself. Mismatched furniture from thrift stores, plants she kept alive through sheer determination, walls painted colors Grant would have hated. It was hers. But most nights, she ended up back at the estate anyway, having dinner with Lucien and Arya, reading bedtime stories, existing in their orbit without being consumed by it. The nightmares faded. The hypervigilance eased. The moments where she forgot Grant was in prison and believed he was still hunting her became rare instead of constant. Healing, Dr. Okafor said, looked like this. Messy, non-linear, progress measured in moments rather than milestones. One evening in May, Camilla and Lucien sat on the back terrace watching Arya chase fireflies across the lawn. She's happy, Lucien said. She is. You did that. Gave her someone besides guards and staff, someone who sees her. You did that too, by letting me stay. I let you stay because sending you away would have destroyed me. He looked at her. You know that, right? Camilla met his eyes. I'm starting to. Good, because I need you to understand something. What? I'm in love with you. Have been since you walked into Velvet Hour looking like the storm had tried to drown you and you'd decided to drown it back. His voice stayed steady. I'm not asking you to feel the same. I'm not asking for anything. I just need you to know. The words settled into her chest like truth she'd been avoiding. Lucien, you don't have to respond. You don't have to decide anything. I just needed to say it out loud once so you knew. He turned back to watching Arya. Take whatever time you need. I'll be here. Camilla's hands shook. 8 months. 8 months since he'd pulled her out of the rain. 8 months of protection and patience and giving her space to become whole again. 8 months of falling without admitting it. "I'm scared," she said quietly. "I know. Grant destroyed me. I don't know if I have anything left to give someone else." "You're not destroyed. You're rebuilding. There's a difference." "What if I'm too broken for this? For you?" "Then we'll figure it out together. Or not. Your choice either way." The casual certainty in his voice made her want to cry and laugh and scream all at once. "I don't know what love looks like when it's not a weapon," Camilla said. "Neither did I. Then you showed up, and I started learning." Lucian's hand found hers. "We can learn together, at whatever pace you need." Camilla looked at their joined hands, his scarred knuckles, her trembling fingers. Two broken people reaching for something that might heal them, or might destroy them, or might just exist somewhere in between. "Okay," she said. "Okay what?" "Okay, let's try. Slow, careful, but let's try." Lucian smiled, a real one that reached his eyes. "Okay." They sat in silence, watching Arya collect fireflies in a jar she'd released before bed. Watching spring settle over the estate. Watching the future unfold slowly instead of crashing down all at once. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't healed. It wasn't the ending Camilla had imagined when she walked into that storm 8 months ago. But it was real. It was hers. It was chosen. And for the first time since Grant Holloway's birthday party, that was enough. 1 year later, Camilla stood in the community center's new wing, funded by Grant's seized assets and named for the families he'd displaced. The ribbon-cutting ceremony was small. Local politicians, community leaders, families who'd lost homes and were finally getting support. Carmen stood beside her, grinning. "We did it." "You did it. I just showed up." "Bullshit. You fought for this, testified, made sure that bastard paid for what he did." Carmen squeezed her shoulder. "This center exists because you were brave enough to speak." Camilla looked around at the new facilities. Medical clinic, job training center, food bank, after-school programs, all of it built from the ashes of Grant Holloway's empire. Justice hadn't just been about putting him in prison. It had been about making sure the people he'd hurt got something back, got support, got a chance to rebuild. That mattered more than any guilty verdict. After the ceremony, Camilla drove to the estate. Maria had dinner waiting. Arya had a project to show her. Lucien waited on the terrace with wine and that quiet smile he wore when he was happy, but didn't want to make a big deal about it. They'd been officially together for 6 months. Slowly. Carefully. Learning what love looked like when it wasn't poisoned by control. Some days were easy. Some days Camilla's trauma roared back and she needed space, and Lucien gave it without making her feel broken for needing it. Some days, he had to handle business she didn't ask about, and she trusted him to come home safely. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. It was theirs. After dinner, after Arya went to bed, Camilla and Lucien walked down to the lake edge, the same spot where she'd stood a year ago feeling trapped and terrified. "How was the ceremony?" Lucien asked. "Good. Meaningful. The families seemed happy. You should be proud." "I am. But also exhausted. Fighting Grant took everything. Sometimes I wonder if I have anything left." "You have plenty left. You're just learning what to do with it now that survival isn't the priority." He pulled her close. "That takes time." They stood watching moonlight on water, the same view, different people looking at it. "I got a letter today," Camilla said quietly. "From Grant." Lucien tensed. "What did it say?" "That he forgives me. That he understands I was confused, that when he gets out, we can start over." "He's delusional." "I know, but reading it still made my hands shake. Still made me feel like maybe he's right. Maybe I overreacted. Maybe—" "Stop." Lucien turned her to face him. "That's what he does. Plants doubt. Makes you question your reality. But you didn't overreact. You survived. You escaped. You rebuilt. And he's in prison because of choices he made. Not because of anything you did. I know that logically, but not emotionally yet. That's okay. Healing takes longer than justice." Camilla pressed her forehead against his chest, breathing in cedar and safety and the smell of home. "Thank you," she said, "for everything, for saving me, for being patient, for not giving up when I was too broken to trust anyone. You were never broken, just bent. There's a difference. His arms tightened around her. And you saved yourself, Camilla. I just provided the tools. They stood like that for a long time. Two people who'd found each other in the worst circumstances and somehow built something worth keeping. Eventually, they walked back to the house, checked on Arya sleeping peacefully, climbed the stairs to Lucien's room. Their room now, mostly, when Camilla felt ready to stay. Before bed, Camilla pulled out the letter from Grant. Read it one more time. Then she did something she should have done years ago. She tore it into pieces, threw them in the fireplace, watched them burn. The past couldn't hurt her anymore. Grant couldn't reach her from prison. The woman who'd walked into that storm was gone, replaced by someone harder, sharper, more whole. Someone who'd survived and chosen to keep surviving. Someone who'd learned that freedom meant deciding who deserved space in her life and who didn't. Grant didn't. Camilla climbed into bed beside Lucien, fitting herself against his warmth, feeling his arms settle protectively around her waist. Love you, he murmured against her hair. Love you too. The words still felt new, fragile, like they might break if she examined them too closely. But they were real. They were chosen. They were hers. Outside, Lake Michigan reflected stars like shattered diamonds. Chicago glittered in the distance. The world kept turning, indifferent to one woman's journey from captivity to freedom. But Camilla felt it anyway. The weight lifting, the future opening, the possibility of becoming someone she'd never had the chance to be. It had taken a storm. A stranger in a jazz club, months of running and hiding and fighting. It had taken losing everything to find herself. But standing on the other side of it all, Camilla finally understood. Sometimes the only way to save your life is to destroy it completely. Sometimes surviving means becoming someone new. Sometimes love isn't about being saved, it's about being seen. And sometimes, just sometimes, walking into the rain is exactly what you need to do. Not to escape, to begin.